Hi, I'm Jen,
And I'm Zoe.
and you're listening to Every Rom Com, the podcast where we have fun taking romantic comedies seriously.
This week on Every Rom Com, we're continuing the Gen-X Rom Com series with a stop in 1989 for a dark comedy that influenced a generation of teen movies.
We'll talk about the worst parts of high school, from cliques and bullying to teen suicide, school violence, and getting involved with the wrong guys.
And we'll get into our own high school experiences as we discuss the Winona Ryder, Christian Slater film Heathers.
Hey Zoe, welcome back.
Thanks, Jen.
It has been a really long time since we have podcasted together when we did the Before series, and you were just like so excellent on that series of movies. So I'm really grateful to have you back here.
I am excited. It was so fun to do that. I'm so glad you wanted me to come back.
Yeah. And you did like Before Sunrise was also a Gen X movie, so you're here for another Gen X movie,
That's
essentially.
Which is funny because I was like 4 or 5 years old when Heathers was made, so I'm not a Gen Xer.
Yeah, millennial.
Elder millennial, but still firmly a millennial.
Yeah. Yeah, eventually I will be podcasting with someone else who is also part of Gen X, but it will not be today. That's okay. I like having the sort of differing perspectives on these things. So we talked in those episodes about how you run Monadnock Underground and you do publishing and kind of a magazine, like an online magazine and also a print magazine.
Yeah, we started out as a print magazine, but we've kind of transitioned to doing paperback anthology, like themed collections, and we've done a couple of single author books. And I think for 2022, we just had our big strategy planning meeting. We have 5 books on the docket for 2022 and some other fun things. And our online magazine publishing has kind of condensed into seasons to make the workload a little more balanced in terms of like editing
Yeah.
and publishing. We just finished up, we gave out awards for our fall season, and we will be opening up submissions for our spring online season in March. So if you're a writer, if you're interested in submitting, we will have that open. Our website is monadnockunderground.com, so you can check out what we just published for the fall season, read our award-winning. It's almost all short stories that won our awards this season, but we
But
accept all kinds of writing.
yeah, I was going to say you have like a very diverse selection of writing that you have. Yeah. And also a podcast. So
yeah, the podcast is kind of we have a local branch of our Monadnock Underground media called Go Monadnock. Our podcast is really heavily focused on our small town and our region. I mean, it might be funny to other listeners, but it's a lot of like local news, local happenings. So
and to clarify, that's in New Hampshire. So
yes, in New Hampshire.
yeah. Cool. So I'm really excited about everything you're doing. If I had more time in my life right now, I would definitely submit, but the podcast keeps me so freaking busy all the time. But I encourage everybody else to like go check out the website and consider submitting. I think it would be a great opportunity. And then today we're doing another Gen X rom com, sort of rom com. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And it's starring Christian Slater. And Christian Slater was kind of one of the it guys of Gen X movies. And I'm just curious, like, did you ever find Christian Slater attractive in the 80s or 90s? Like, what's your take on him?
My take. So I feel like Christian Slater is an example of someone that was definitely hot before my time. I just think of him as like when I try to like recall my 90s feelings of Christian Slater, he was just old. Like which, isn't necessarily a turnoff for me, but back then I just he was not really in my like attractive actor purview.
Okay. So he like who just out of curiosity, who was on your 90s radar then?
So this is fun. Like, so none of these guys did it for me. I was very much like, I'm above that. Like when I was that age, I had a crush on John Lennon. Like that was my kind of thing. Yes, he was dead. Didn't matter. I was like above the teen heartthrob thing though. Like
the
I
current
felt like I was too
crop.
good for that.
Okay.
Leonardo DiCaprio really pissed me off.
Oh yeah.
Like
Sorry, we didn't do the list yet. I put a list here of like different guys. Like, so to be clear, Leonardo DiCaprio, Keanu Reeves, River Phoenix, Ethan Hawke, Ben Affleck, Matt Dillon, Leonardo DiCaprio. So why did Leonardo DiCaprio piss you off? I'm curious.
I could not understand why people found him attractive. And I thought that they were all just like fawning all over him. I don't know, just to pretend to be cool.
All right. I mean, I can guarantee you a lot of people really found him attractive.
Oh no, it's funny because I get it now. And I totally get it now, but when I was in middle school and Titanic came out, I was like, no way. You guys are like faking it.
So like when I put Leonardo DiCaprio on the list, it's actually more to do with for his Gen X role, it's more to do like something like What's Eating Gilbert Grape, because he was, even before Titanic, he had a little bit of an indie heartthrob vibe. So
okay.
Yeah. But for me, like when I was in the 80s and 90s, like Keanu Reeves, like, I mean, I could see he was attractive. He didn't really like do it for me. River Phoenix, I could also see he was attractive, didn't really do it for me. I was into Harrison Ford because I liked much older guys when I was in the 80s and 90s. Ethan Hawke did do it for me though. Ethan Hawke was one of my, oh, he's hot kind of guys, mostly from Reality Bites. And then, and Christian Slater in this movie, Heathers. So we'll talk about how that's slightly disturbing later. But I definitely found him attractive in this movie. He was actually on the younger side of guys I found attractive in the 80s and 90s. And but Matt Dillon, Leonardo DiCaprio didn't do it for me either. Like my 90s guys were not Gen X specific. They're more like Gary Oldman, Daniel Day-Lewis.
Day-Lewis, yes. If he's a contender, I was attracted to him since like the first time I saw him, probably as a young child.
but Christian Slater was too old, but not Daniel Day-Lewis.
No, I don't mean like there's no logic to it. Like
okay.
It's not that I felt like he was too old. He was just like a heartthrob of a time before me. So I never saw Heathers was a movie that I saw in my 20s because it was not a movie that was out at a time that I would have watched it.
Yeah.
Same with Ethan Hawke. Like I definitely think he's attractive. I probably would have thought he was attractive, but I just never saw any of his movies when I was that age because they were just a little too old for me.
Fair enough. So the answer is kind of like you might have found those guys attractive if you'd seen the right movies, but you weren't seeing the right movies. You just kind of saw them as like they were old news kind of guys.
Yes.
That like,
Yeah, that's what I mean. Not like not like old men, but like old news. That's more accurate.
Yeah. So I don't know. Like, I think it was a pretty actually good sort of intelligent crop of heartthrobs that we had in the Gen X era compared to some eras. Like the era that came after mine seemed like it was more like Nickelodeon kind of boy band obsessed. I want to say, like Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, like Jonathan Taylor Thomas. I still don't really know who he is.
Yes, yes, Jonathan Taylor Thomas. He was on Home Improvement, the show with Tim Allen.
I don't even know, but like I just knew that
that was my era, and I was just like, no.
Yeah. I mean, I can kind of see Justin Timberlake, but the rest of that whole crop was just like, ugh, like to me. So like, I think that the Gen X heartthrobs are kind of unique, and they're kind of like they were kind of intellectual seeming, a little bit counterculture. I mean, Keanu Reeves and River Phoenix like were in my own private Idaho. Like we were in an era where like these like heartthrobs could be doing these really indie movies like with themes that were kind of ahead of their time or controversial. So even if we weren't into them necessarily at the time, I think I can look back on that era with a little bit of pride.
Yeah. No, I mean this list, I mean they're good actors in this list. They're not just, a cute round face like I feel like a lot of the heartthrobs from my era were.
Yeah. All right. Well, cool. We've done our heartthrob deal. So before we get started with today's episode, just a reminder, as usual on the show, we're going to have a spoiler-free section at the beginning of the episode, and we will let you know when the spoiler section begins.
We'd also like to remind you that you can follow the podcast on social media. Our Facebook page is Every Rom-Com Podcast and Blog. Our Instagram is @EveryRomCom, and our Twitter handle is @EveryRomComPod.
And as always, you can find the podcast at everyromcom.com. Send us feedback at feedback@everyromcom.com. And if you like what you hear, please rate, review, and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts. Okay, and now we're going to listen to the trailer for Heathers, but I have like a bit of a caveat before I start it. So there were a couple trailers for Heathers. They were all kind of poor. So I'm going with the one that was at least hilarious, which is the international trailer. And in the international trailer, they renamed the movie Lethal Attraction, which is amazing. Yeah, in the commentary for the film that I watched the commentary, the director and writer were joking that they sometimes call the movie Fatal Weapon as a joke. Because Fatal Attraction, Lethal Weapon, anyway. And also the trailer is going to take a ton of lines out of context, and you'll know which ones pretty much immediately if you've seen the movie. Anyway, don't think that this trailer is really much about what the movie's about, but I thought it was hilarious, so we're going to play it.
Hi, Kurt. It's always been a fantasy of mine to have two guys at once. Oh, sure, you can write to Penthouse for him.
Meet Veronica. She's got it all.
It's great pate, but I got a motor if I want to be ready for that party tonight.
So, when you go to college, what subjects do you think you study?
Her friends are the most popular girls in school.
I'm worshipped Westerberg, and I'm only a junior.
The coolest guys
I just want to get laid.
want to date her. She should be happy. She's looking for something special. And one day, she found him.
Greetings and salutations.
Who's that guy in the coat think he is, anyways? Bo Diddley?
His name is Jason Dean. It's in my American history.
You gonna eat this? Hey, Ram, doesn't this cafeteria have a no fags allowed rule? Oh, yeah. They seem to have an open door policy for assholes, though, don't they? What did you say, dickhead? I'll repeat myself.
They called him J.D. He was a rebel.
Chaos is great. Chaos is what killed the dinosaurs, darling.
A romantic.
Is this as good for you as it is for me?
A guy who swept Veronica off her feet
It's a lot more interesting than just flinging off your clothes and boning away on a neighbor's swing set.
and into a nightmare. The most amusing nightmare
Did you miss him completely?
you've ever seen.
I love my dead gay son.
But this is no ordinary story of young love.
That knife is filthy.
What do you think I'm gonna do with it? Take out her tonsils?
I don't really like my friends.
I don't really like your friends either.
That's it. We're breaking up.
It's gonna be the kind of thing to infect a generation. I mean, it's gonna be a Woodstock for the 80s.
It's over, JD.
Nag, 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 nag!
From the first blush of romance
How very.
to the last squeeze of the trigger,
We're not gonna be using blanks this time.
they go all the way.
It's not very subtle, but neither's blowing up a whole school now, is it?
You know what I want, babe?
Lethal attraction
Cool guys like you out of my life.
until death do they part. Lethal attraction.
I like how they repeat the title twice. Lethal Attraction. They're taunting the director who didn't want it to be renamed or something.
So that's that. I was imagining something kind of like, have you seen the fake trailer, like the re-edited trailer for The Shining that turns it into like a comedy? Shining.
Yeah.
I was expecting something like that more. This at least does bear some resemblance to the movie, although it is hilarious.
It's really bad. Like, it just makes Veronica seem like so stupid, like when she's really like very intelligent and like the driver of the action more. You know what I mean? I don't
Yes. I
know.
mean, it cuts out like 100% of any of the context, which is what makes the movie actually interesting.
Yeah, and you don't even hear the Heathers talking, which is super weird.
Right.
So yeah, it's really weird. It's a really weird trailer, but I had to play it because I loved it. And we might end up having to cut out part of the trailer because if there were spoilers in the trailer, but that's okay. Lethal attraction. Anyway, so that was the trailer. So now we're going to tell a little bit about the movie, the basic information. So Heathers was released March 31st, 1989. It's directed by Michael Lehman, written by Daniel Waters, and starring Winona Ryder and Christian Slater.
And so the basic premise, which was really not covered by that trailer at all, is Veronica Sawyer, Winona Ryder's character, hangs out with a popular clique at her school, 3 other girls who are all named Heather. She meets a rebellious new guy at school named JD, Jason Dean, and they quickly start a relationship. Veronica has a fight with the lead Heather. She and JD go to Heather's house with the intention of serving her a gross drink that will make her puke. So Veronica's mixing up some milk and OJ, but JD has different plans and prepares a poisonous drink, which Veronica serves to Heather by accident. Heather dies, and JD's solution to this problem is for Veronica to copy Heather's handwriting to create a suicide note. And the school and the community react to Heather's apparent suicide as if she'd been a great person, even though most of the people at school hated her or feared her while she was alive. And so Veronica just wants to move on, but JD wants to lead her down a path towards further violence.
So, some interesting facts about the movie. So, the screenwriter Daniel Waters conceived of this movie as, what if Stanley Kubrick decided to make a teen film? And like in the commentary, he seemed to semi-seriously believe that he could get Stanley Kubrick to direct this movie, which I think would have been kind of amazing in a way. But I think it turned out fine as it was too. His other inspiration for writing the movie was this cultural fixation on teen suicide in the 80s. He said, quote, "Back then, there were so many television shows and documentaries about the horror of teen suicide that just made it so attractive to commit suicide because you got all this love and adulation. Who can resist? It seemed like I was the only one noticing the humor in it," end quote. So just kind of satirizing the culture around suicide in the 80s. For original casting, the filmmakers originally tried to get Jennifer Connelly to play Veronica and Justine Bateman, but they turned it down. And Heather Graham was the original choice for the lead Heather Chandler. But Heather Graham's parents refused to let her appear in the movie. Winona Ryder's agent begged her not to do the movie and said she would never work again. Winona Ryder ended up dumping that agent. And the character of Veronica was like originally written to be much darker and even like a little bit evil. But when Daniel Waters rewrote after having met Winona Ryder, he rewrote her as more of an audience surrogate, as like a more likable character, which I think works really well. Like, I don't think this movie would have like staying power if like Veronica had been kind of dark as well as JD. Like, what do you think?
Yeah, I totally think that was the right call. I like, we all need a little Veronica, surrogate in that movie. It wouldn't be fun to watch if there was like nobody to relate to.
Yeah, for sure. And some audiences were confused by the eventual movie. So in the commentary I watched, director Michael Lehman recalled like some person at a test screening who said, quote, "The filmmakers don't know whether they're trying to make Porky's or Blue Velvet."
That is a hilarious quote, because that's that song that played a little bit in the trailer where it's got like the breathing. When I was rewatching this movie, I was like, oh wow, this is like a little Lynchian with this particular like music.
Oh yeah. So the film cost $3 million to make, and it only grossed $1.1 million. Wow. So I guess part of that was the studio that made it was kind of going out of business at the time anyway, and so they basically put nothing towards marketing. And the movie did eventually like have a lot of success on video and TV. It became kind of a cult classic, but like I don't really know how much it made on video. I couldn't find that information, but yeah, it bombed, I guess. But Winona Ryder is a huge Heathers fan, so she told Entertainment Weekly, quote, I love this movie to the point where I talk about it like I'm not even in it. If it's on TV, I watch it. I've probably seen it 50 times, like I can do it by heart. And she also said she like holds the script among the great literature she's ever read.
Oh,
and
wow.
actually, like watching it back with that in mind, though, like I kind of agree with her. Like the dialogue is so sharp. It is so much sharper than almost any of the other movies I feel like we've reviewed for the podcast. Yeah, I thought it was great, and I thought it was very sharply observed about the time period. So I know it seems like you might disagree though, because you said, "Oh wow."
No, I think that, I mean, great literature. Maybe I haven't read the screenplay, but I agree with you. I mean, it's super sharp. Rewatching it for this podcast is like I was laughing, and like I've seen this movie several times over the years, and not that long ago, but like it is like sparkling. I guess that's a how hilarious the dialogue is. Like stuff that you it holds up to multiple rewatches. It's just super funny. Yeah. Great literature. I don't know if I'll go that far, but
okay. Fair enough.
If she wants to, that's cool.
So some weird things that I found out from also watching the special features on the DVD. So Kim Walker plays the lead Heather, and she has dialogue in the movie, "Did you have a brain tumor for breakfast?" She ended up dying of a brain tumor in 2001 at 32 years old.
Oh, man.
Which is nuts. Like, and then Jeremy Applegate plays the head of the school newspaper in the movie. He gives a voiceover at one point where he's praying to God that he will never commit suicide himself. He ended up shooting himself in 2000. So it's a little eerie. It's a little bit like a sort of a curse, like a little scary. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, two weird deaths like that almost is a curse, isn't it?
Yeah, I think if it were 3, it would solidify it. But yeah, they're probably safe now, I hope. Yeah.
I don't know. What's the like expiration date on a movie curse like that?
Well, once you get old enough, though, like it's more like, well, you got old, so the odds are that you're eventually going to die. You know what I mean? Like dying in your 30s is one thing. Dying when you're 40 or 50, it starts to be more like, well, it happens to people. I don't know.
I mean, it'll depend on like the cause of death and whether it ties into
whether it relates to the movie. Okay, that's a good point. Yeah, if like well, we can't spoil anything else. Okay. So there was a Heathers musical that had an off-Broadway run in 2014. I looked up the plot though, and it seemed terrible to me. Like it just changed so much about how events happen in the movie, and it made Veronica seem way less likable and with way less agency. I didn't even want to keep reading the synopsis. So I imagine if I bought tickets for the show, I would have felt pissed off.
Wow.
If you want to, feel free to go read the Wikipedia entry on this musical and see what you think about it. But And then in 2018, there was an attempt to reboot the movie into a TV series. And the release of it was initially delayed due to the Parkland shooting. But they ended up selling the rights internationally, and it was released in its full form there. But later it was released in the US, but there were like substantial cuts made and like a change to the ending of the movie to make it less violent. You can buy the show now on Amazon at a pretty high price per episode. I might watch it at some point, except that it's like $1.99 per episode, and there's 9 episodes, and it's like I'd be paying like, if I liked it at all, I'd end up paying like $18, which seems like a lot.
Oh, wow. You can't just buy the whole series?
It wouldn't let you even buy the whole series. It's hard to access this. Yeah. All right. So we talked a little bit about your opinion of the movie already, but I'm kind of interested, like, what were your first impressions when you saw it? Like, have you watched a lot of times? And like, what's your general feeling about the movie?
So I mentioned earlier, I saw this movie in my 20s, well out of high school. I may have mentioned when I was on the podcast before that like most people who know me, as they get to know me, they realize how few movies I've seen, which is weird because I love movies. I love good movies. But everybody that I know well has like a list of movies they think I should watch that I've somehow missed. And I just don't watch them that often. But this was one of those ones where when I saw it, I just thought it was so funny. I was like, oh man, this is like what a comedy movie that I want to watch is like. And this is one of those ones that like it just hit the spot for me because it's just so funny in a dark way. Like it hits my sense of humor, and it's just like, oh yeah, cool that someone made this and that I got to see it, you know.
What led you to watching it? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was on my ex-husband James's list of movies for me to watch.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah. And he was a little older, I think, right? Like I can't
Yes,
remember.
he's a Gen Xer.
Okay.
And he liked
Yeah.
this movie when he was in high school and definitely had some identified with JD to a certain extent.
My goodness. Okay. All right. So, yeah. So me, like, I watched it probably soon after it came out. My parents weren't very restrictive about what I could watch. I was 12 when it came out. I was probably 13, maybe 14 when I first saw it on video. Like, I could watch pretty much whatever. And like, yeah, it resonated with me pretty deeply because I was picked on a lot, bullied in school, like a nerd. So like for me, it was a movie kind of vindicating nerds and vindicating people who aren't in the power structure at a school. Like that's the perspective I watched it from. And even though I knew that what JD was doing in the movie is wrong, there was like a certain appeal to him, like this guy coming from outside of your school and trying to help kind of liberate you from these popular people who are kind of abusing other people. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we'll talk about that a little more. So I had like kind of a crush on JD. I kind of like always had this feeling like, why couldn't he just be reformed in some way?
Oh.
I had identifications with various characters in the movie. Like there were aspects I admired about Veronica and Betty, Finn, and I identified with Martha in some ways too. So it was kind of like I could find multiple points of identification, and I would just watch it a lot. Like I probably had it on video taped off TV or something, and just something to throw on in the background at any time. So it wasn't like my favorite movie, but it was one of the most like ubiquitous movies for me to watch. Like, and I feel like everyone my age had seen it. Like, even though it wasn't super popular at the movie theater, I think like it became so popular on video, just something that was part of the culture. Okay, so let's see. We're going to now talk a little bit about the cast and crew. And Zoe, can you start us off with the director, Michael Lehman?
Oh, yes. Prior to Heathers, he had only directed one film, a USC student film called The Beaver Gets a Boner in 1985. I don't know if you have looked more into what that movie is about, if it does its title reveal all, or
I saw it described as kind of like a John Waters-esque satire of like 50s culture a little bit, but I don't know. Like I haven't seen it directly, so I don't know. Okay. I've seen secondhand descriptions on like film review sites.
His other films include Hudson Hawk, The Truth About Cats and Dogs, and 40 Days and 40 Nights. But these days he's mostly a TV director, and he's directed episodes of shows including The Larry Sanders Show, Big Love, True Blood, Californication, and more. He's currently in post-production on a miniseries, The Woman in the House Across the Street from the Girl in the Window. That's the title of it.
Yep.
And it's a satire of thriller series starring Kristen Bell.
Yeah, because there was that thriller thing called The Girl in the Window or something, or The Woman in the Window. I don't freaking remember. So it's kind of like playing on that, I guess. I haven't seen that series, but this sounds kind of funny. Like I like the idea of a satire of thriller series anyway.
Yeah, I mean the title kind of tickles me. So
yeah,
see what happens there.
So the writer is Daniel Waters. He seems like kind of an eccentric character when you watch interviews with him. Like, you know, the fact that he seemed to believe that Stanley Kubrick might actually have directed his screenplay. Anyway, but I admire the chutzpah at the same time. So Heathers was his first feature film. At the time he was writing it, he was working at a video store and he could not afford food. So he was eating popcorn every night. So that's like a Gen X indie Cinderella story if I ever heard one. He went on to write screenplays including Hudson Hawk, which we found out that Michael Lehman directed, Batman Returns, which is interesting, and Demolition Man. And he wrote and directed 2 movies himself, Happy Campers and Sex. Have you seen that?
Oh my God. No, I haven't actually seen it, but my friend Joe, who grew up across the street from us and who has made movies with me and my brother, Joe is a screenwriter, a writer. He was in it when he was like 6 or 7. Yes, he was in Happy Campers, and part of his costume for this movie was a T-shirt with a picture of his own face on it, and so he wore that all the time. after
Weird.
the movie. But I don't think I ever watched it because I'm a terrible friend, and probably it was rated R and I wasn't allowed to.
Yeah, like it looks like kind of like a camp exploitation comedy. I kind of want to watch it because it's got Dominique Swain, who did the modern version of Lolita, and I always thought she was a really good actor. But yeah, I couldn't find it for free anywhere, so I'll probably try to find it from the library.
Oh man,
Anyway,
so this little kid, this like little boy, Joe Worthen, he was my neighbor, and he's been our friend, me and my brother's friend, for like 30 plus years. So that's him.
yeah, I'll look for it. I'll look for it. And so he wrote and directed the Happy Campers and then something called Sex and Death 101. And Winona Ryder appeared in that second film. So I haven't seen either of those yet. Most recently, in 2018, Daniel Waters wrote the TV movie #Fashion Victim. And I think he does script doctoring work too, but I couldn't 100% verify that. So Daniel Waters said about Heathers, quote, teenagers are actually in some weird way comforted by the movie because they don't draw back from the heartlessness, that they can kind of take joy in realizing that maybe there's a high school worse than theirs. And I think that's true, at least for people of my generation. I think we watched Heathers and we were kind of like, yeah, like the darkness of this movie actually makes me feel better about my life in some weird way. Or it makes me feel better maybe because it's being acknowledged that high school is dark, that adolescence is hard.
I think that resonates even years later. When I watched it in my 20s, even though I was, past that high school angst time, I still felt that resonance. Like, oh yeah, it's normal to feel those like dark feelings about your high school experience.
Okay, so I'm going to continue talking for a minute about Winona Ryder. So she's the star of the film. Winona Ryder is like one of those actresses. Like we had an episode where we talked about Michelle Pfeiffer, I Could Never Be Your Woman, and I realized how much I'd kind of taken for granted how Michelle Pfeiffer's in all this stuff I love. And I kind of feel the same way now about Winona Ryder, looking back at her career. Her feature film debut was in the film Lucas, which was another teen film in '86. And she just finished Beetlejuice when she was cast in Heathers. And she was only 15 and turned 16 during the filming.
Wow.
She was in a lot of movies then in the late 80s and 90s, like Edward Scissorhands, Mermaids with Cher, Bram Stoker's Dracula, The Age of Innocence, Reality Bites, which we're going to talk about later in the Gen X series, Little Women, Alien Resurrection, Girl Interrupted. Just there's more and more than that. And then in 2001, she was arrested for shoplifting. So I think that kind of put a damper on her career at that point. She kind of became a joke a lot of places. She still worked in the 2000s. Like she was in Mr. Deeds. She was in A Scanner Darkly, but like a lot of her roles were kind of minor after that. And then in 2010, I think she kind of had her comeback when she played in Black Swan. She played an aging ballet dancer in Black Swan, and that role was really critically acclaimed at the time. And then more recently, she's like made a big comeback by playing the lead role in Stranger Things. And she's also appeared in a couple other TV shows that have gotten a lot of critical notice, like Show Me a Hero and The Plot Against America. And recently she was in also another rom-com, the 2018 Destination Wedding with Keanu Reeves. And Sophia really likes that movie. I'm not a huge fan, but like it's kind of cool to see the icons together. And she's got a movie right now in post-production called The Cow. There was like no plot info available at all. I hope it's related to Wilmington's cow. Calling back to Before Sunrise there. Anyway.
Sorry, that really caught me off guard. That was really funny. I hope so too. All right, Christian Slater, who plays JD, was the son of a soap opera actor and a casting agent, so he became a child actor. And his first IMDb credit was when he was 11 years old with The Search for Tomorrow. His feature film debut was The Legend of Billie Jean in 1985, and the part that got him noticed for Heathers was The Name of the Rose in 1986. After Heathers, he did some other teen roles. He was in a skateboarding movie called Gleaming the Cube, and he appeared as another rebel character in Pump Up the Volume. In the 90s, he did Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, True Romance, Interview with the Vampire, Murder in the First, the romantic movie Bed of Roses, Broken Arrow, and Very Bad Things.
And I'm just going to interject that we're going to talk about True Romance later on the podcast. And I think you're still coming along to do that with me, if I'm not mistaken.
I would love to. I was just going to say, that's the only one of those movies I've seen. From 2000 to 2015, he continued working, but on less prominent projects or smaller roles, and did more work in TV. And from 2015 to 2019, he had one of the lead roles in Mr. Robot. Is that a TV show?
Yeah.
I'm so clueless.
And for Mr. Robot, he got a lot of critical notice, I guess. So that's been kind of a breakout thing for him, I think. Yeah.
Cool. And then recently he was in the Dr. Death TV miniseries and the animated TV series Inside Job. And he's in pre-production for Guns 3, alias Billy the Kid, which is a sequel in the Young Guns series. He was also in Young Guns too.
Yeah, doesn't Guns 3 sounds like a terrible movie. I can't believe there's actually going to be a Young Guns 3. That's weird to me. Like, how is this still relevant in 2022? I don't know.
If I saw, like, coming soon to a theater near you, Guns 3, alias Billy the Kid, I mean, that just sounds horrible.
I know.
Can you even, I can't even imagine someone, like, making a trailer for this with a straight face.
Yeah. I guess they can't call it Young Guns. They can't. I guess they could call it Old Guns, but
I did not take the time to look up and see how Christian Slater has aged. I don't know.
I mean, he looks okay. Like, some of the other guys in the movie probably look less okay, to be honest. So I don't know. And I don't really care if they look good or not. It just seems like a silly franchise to reboot. That's all. I don't know. Westerns, I just don't know if Westerns are really even still making a comeback, but whatever. Oh, and then, like, I wanted to shout out, like, I don't usually shout out producers on the podcast, but Denise Denovi is a female producer who's had a really prestigious career, who has produced a lot of important movies. And Heathers was actually the first movie she produced on her own. So that's kind of a landmark for her. And some of the other movies she produced are Edward Scissorhands, Batman Returns. She produced the 1994 and 2019 versions of Little Women. So, like, people are always saying one is better than the other. Well, she's responsible for both of them. So no matter which one you like better, she did it. She produced it. She also did Practical Magic, The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, and its sequel, and Crazy Stupid Love, among many other movies. But those are just some that I thought maybe our listeners might be interested by.
Yeah.
So respect to her. And then just really quickly, the other cast, like we're going to talk about who all the other Heathers were. Kim Walker played Heather Chandler, the lead Heather, and she was actually dating Christian Slater at the time they were doing the movie. Like, it predated the movie too. Like, they were dating before they filmed. And Shannon Doherty, like Beverly Hills 90210 fame, she is Heather Duke, and Lisanne Falk is Heather McNamara. So in terms of Heathers being a Gen X film, when I look to analyze it, I feel like it's more of a feeling that it's a Gen X film than I can really like find evidence for, but I'm going to try anyway. Winona Ryder and Christian Slater being in it are two reasons I think of it as a Gen X film, because they're kind of key Gen X actors. Like, they were hot at the time and young and just part of the generation. The movie does have an attitude of questioning social norms. I don't know if it's questioning consumerism as much, but just like questioning the sort of normalcy that adults are trying to preserve amidst like abnormal situations. You've got JD plays an outsider character, and Veronica plays kind of an insider who's questioning the system. And there's not a lot of pop culture references like you'll see in later Gen X films. You do get some like little subtle things by the writer of the movie. He calls Veronica Sawyer, and then her old best friend is Betty Finn. So he's simultaneously playing on Betty and Veronica and playing on like Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn. So that's kind of interesting.
I didn't even catch that.
Yeah, I never caught it too until they like pointed it out to me, but I guess it's there on a subconscious level. And then Westerberg High is the name of the high school in the film, named after one of the members of the Replacements. And Sherwood, Ohio is the place the kids are supposed to live. And that was a reference to the book Winesburg, Ohio by Sherwood Anderson that the author really enjoyed. So, I mean, it's got like pop culture and culture woven into the movie. even if they're not always talking about stuff. Although there is a scene where somebody's like calling into this call-in show and talking about how he's frustrated by Gilligan on Gilligan's Island. That is like totally a the next touch. Did you notice that? It's kind of like, it's not the main dialogue or anything.
I did. Well, they also, they call, like, several characters call JD, I guess, like, pop culture references too. They call him Bo Diddley. They call him Jesse James. They call him, there's one more too. So I don't know, another little minor pop culture reference there.
And a lot of Gen X films will have like a more progressive attitude towards like LGBT people. So like the way this film is viewed today is like very different, I think, than the way it was in the 80s. Watching this in the late 80s, it seemed like a very clear commentary on homophobia and like pro-gay people and against homophobia. So we'll talk about that more when we get to that part. But yeah. And I also see it as a Gen X film in a way because it's kind of like a change point between like the John Hughes light teen films of the 80s and then the satirical teen films of the late 90s and early 2000s, things like Clueless, Mean Girls, Bring It On, or like Drop Dead Gorgeous. They were never quite as biting as this, except for maybe Election. But I think this is a Gen X film, an example of a film made by Gen X people that influenced generations of culture to come, like generations of teen films. Like, you don't have Mean Girls without Heathers. You don't have, I don't think, Clueless without Heathers, in my opinion.
I agree with that.
So like, do you think my justifications for this being a Gen X film are enough, or like, or have I failed?
No, I think that having these like two Gen X stars is actually, it's not a minor thing. And definitely like the influence on, you named some great ones that I hadn't even thought of yet, but that I think you're totally right about. Drop Dead Gorgeous, Mean Girls. Definitely the influence of Heathers is important there.
Yeah, I guess Clueless, I'm going to give Amy Heckerling a little more credit. That like, I think Clueless was a lot her. But yeah, but some of the fashion in that I think was clearly influenced by Heathers too. So then I have to further justify calling Heathers a rom-com. I mean, it's clearly a comedy. It's a dark comedy.
Yeah.
In terms of romance, it's very much in the tainted love category though. So, but again, when I watched this movie as like a young teenager, I found JD hot. I found him appealing. I was like into his whole thing. And I was just kind of like, I don't want to spoil anything about the ending, but like by the ending, you shouldn't want to date JD. Just put it that way. But I was kind of always kind of like, oh, but maybe just like he could be better. Like there was like this feeling of wanting him to be redeemed. So I still think of it as a rom-com in some ways. And they have like kind of like the cute meeting. They have a lot of chemistry. Also, Christian Slater and Winona Ryder, they just really work well together.
Yeah, I mean, I think someone could mount an argument against it being a rom-com, but I don't have a problem with it. I think I think that your explanation fits. I think it works.
Okay, so we'll get into the movie then. So we open on the song Que Sera Sera, which to this day I always just associate that song with Heathers. I like that it's got lyrics like about being a little girl. Like when I was just a little girl, I asked my mother, what will I be? Will I be pretty? Will I be rich? Here's what she said to me. And it's like, Que sera, sera. Whatever will be, will be. The future's not ours to see. So it kind of conjures up the image of like little girls. You're also opening on this scene of like Heather, the main Heather Chandler, putting her hair in this red scrunchie that's very important, symbolic item in the movie. And then you see the girls, the three Heathers, all sitting in these like dainty little chairs, like in a garden by flowers, wearing their pretty little outfits with skirts and blazers. And you're set up to first think that this is going to be like this really girly, dainty thing. And then you see them get up and smash that image by like walking over these flowers that are fenced off, like trampling them. So I love that. I love that they subvert your expectations like right away.
Then it moves into the scene of them playing croquet. There's this like, it's your turn, Heather. No, Heather, it's Heather's turn, which I feel like that's kind of like an iconic moment in the movie. Like, it's just, I don't know. Did you know a lot of Heathers? The Heather name thing is big.
I didn't actually know a lot of Heathers. I have like a second cousin named Heather. And then I knew like a couple girls at school named Heather, but like at my school, it was all like, I'm Jennifer, and it was all other Jennifers. And we did kind of have this like system, I guess, like, but we like Heather, you can't shorten really easily, but Jennifer, you can have Jen, Jenny, Jennifer. So a lot of times one of us would be like Jen, one of us would be Jenny, one of us would be Jennifer. And so then that would change too. But like sometimes I had a friend who was just named Jen with a G, and I was Jen with a J at that time. And like somehow when somebody would call for one of us, we always knew which one it was. I don't know why. It just worked somehow.
Yeah. Oh, I get that sense that in this like moment when they're like, it's your turn, Heather. No, Heather, it's Heather's turn, that they have that going on too.
It's weird, isn't it? Yeah. And actually, like I was going to talk about this later, but just something about the name Heather. So I just researched a little bit about it. And according to the Quartz online magazine, no name in history has become so popular and then flamed out quite like Heather. So I guess it peaked in 1975 as the third most popular girl's name. And that would be around the age that these girls, like they would have been born around 1975, maybe a little earlier. And then by 2017, it had dropped to like the 1,129th most popular girl's name. And like some people have speculated that this film might have like helped, decrease its appeal because the Heathers are not the good guys in the movie. But who knows?
Who knows? Heather, like when we were naming our daughter, Kurt really liked the name Heather because we were looking for a plant name, and he suggested Heather, and I'm like, I get where you're going with this, but like absolutely not.
And what was your reason for that? Like,
oh, well, it's too 80s. Like he just, and it wasn't even related to the movie per se.
Yeah,
but it's just dated to me in a way that it wasn't for him.
Yeah. So now we've got also while they're playing croquet, there's a whole color scheme thing going. So the main Heather Chandler, wears red. She's got the red scrunchie, red clothes in her outfit, and then she plays with the red croquet ball. And then Heather McNamara is wearing like all yellow, and she's got the yellow croquet ball. Heather Duke is the green Heather. She's wearing green with a green croquet ball. And then we later find out that Veronica's color is blue. But in this sequence, what happens is that the Heathers each take turns hitting the ball until the red Heather hits the ball into Veronica's head, which is somehow emerging out of the grass. Like it's like just a surreal image. And it's interesting that like I kind of like took that for granted, this like surreal image of her like buried in the grass with just her head sticking out. Like and it's not surreal throughout the whole movie. There's just instances of surreal things happening. Like usually I think that would throw me off tonally, but for some reason it works here. Yeah. Like did you feel that way?
Yes, it's a really, really interesting point, and I had forgotten about it when I watched the movie for this, rewatched it recently. But it just, I don't know, there is something not overtly surreal, but dreamlike about the whole movie, and I think maybe that's why it kind of fits. I mean, there is also a dream sequence later that feels real. There's like this surrealness that is in this, presumably real scene, and then there's this very realistic dream later. I don't know, it's kind of, it all has a little bit of a dream. Maybe that's part of like why it feels a little David Lynchy even.
Yeah. And the croquet, like this, they never talked about this in the commentary, but for me, croquet is associated with Alice in Wonderland, which is also kind of like a dreamlike thing because they play croquet, in Alice in Wonderland. But yeah, and they never mentioned that as an influence, so maybe it wasn't, but it could have been subconscious influence. Who knows?
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, and so Veronica gets hit on the head with this croquet ball, and then this leads directly into her doing her diary voiceover, where she's like, "Dear Diary," and this happens throughout the movie too. She'll just like tell about her feelings or what's going on in the plot with a Dear Diary entry, and that. Daniel Waters, the screenwriter, said that he was thinking of the girls' book tradition of telling stories via diaries. So something like, "Are you there, God? It's me, Margaret." And as an 80s child, again, very relatable to me. I read all those kinds of books. And so it just fits really naturally. And I kept a diary all through my childhood and into my teenage years. And not as much today, I guess. Actually, you and I met keeping an online diary. So there you go, on LiveJournal. So.
Yes, that's I was going to say like, oh no, I never kept a diary, but I did have a LiveJournal. I've deleted or burned all of my old diaries. I I don't like to keep the evidence around, I guess. I've stopped doing that in recent years. But yeah, when I was in high school, I had tons of notebooks and diaries, and I burned them all.
Do you think they were as dramatic as Veronica's diary, or as overwrought with emotion?
Oh, certainly overwrought. Certainly. What cracks me up about her diary scenes, though, is like her gigantic handwriting and like how fast she's writing. And there's like 3 words per page. For some reason, that just cracks me up every time.
That really bothered me too, actually, because like later in the movie, they say she's supposed to be like some kind of genius. And I guess in handwriting analysis, like people who are really smart supposedly write small. I mean, that's not infallible handwriting analysis, but like still, it bothered me. I was like, wait a second here. Shouldn't she be writing smaller? But I guess we need to be able to see what she's writing, like as an audience.
I just took it as like she was so overcome with her emotion that she's just gonna like scribble it out, you know. But
that's
also
probably true.
Seeing it makes sense for a film.
Yeah. She's going through paper fast, though, for sure. Like, yeah, her parents are going to be having to make some money to keep her in diaries. So then in this diary, like, it's not dainty at all. Veronica begins basically by quoting Heather Chandler. And she's quoting Heather Chandler in her diary. Heather says, "Real life sucks losers dry. If you want to fuck with the Eagles, you have to learn to fly." So right away, we're getting the F word. We're getting some swearing. Like this movie, like throughout, is just teenagers are talking, swearing, crude language, insulting each other. Again, like I talk about this on the podcast all the time, like how movies these days have cleaned up the way teenagers talk to each other. And it bothers me in a way because like that's not the experience I had. Heather's is a little exaggerated, and people certainly use more like florid kind of language, like heightened language, but like definitely the kids at my school swore at each other, called each other names. It was a kind of a harsh environment at times. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Was it your experience like that too, or like?
Yeah, less with the name calling, I guess, but like we were a foul-mouthed bunch. I mean, I skipped the 7th grade. And so when I was in 8th grade, I like made friends and became popular at lunchtime by telling like my daily dirty joke, you know, and I was like 12.
Nice. So she's doing this diary entry about Heather Chandler, basically, and about her social situation. You see the diary entry end where she's like sitting on a step in the high school, and the 2 subordinate Heathers, I want to call them, the green Heather and the yellow Heather, come up to her and summon her to the cafeteria because Heather Chandler wants to see her. And one of them like kind of hits her on the head when she's trying to get her attention. And I love Veronica's line, "What is your damage, Heather?" Like, I swear I will say "what's your damage, Heather" to people sometimes. Like not people that I don't think will understand what I'm saying, but just like as a joke, I'll say, "What's your damage, Heather?" Like, or I'll say it like sort of theoretically about somebody who's not there.
Yeah, I think the slang from this movie, or like the quotes from this movie, are why James, my ex, put this on my to watch list, because he would quote it all the time. And that was one of the ones, like, "What's your damage" was one of his lines.
Would he say Heather, or would he say what's your damage?
No, just "what's your damage."
Okay.
Yeah. But you always add the Heather, even if it's
I did. Even just like basically because I'm trying to say it like I'm not serious about saying "what's your damage" because I think it's kind of a harsh thing to say. So it's just kind of like a way to make it a joke. You know what I mean? Because obviously the person isn't actually named Heather. Yeah. And they'll know that I'm just quoting a movie. Yeah. That was how I like softened it, I guess.
So they do go to the cafeteria at that point. Yeah. Veronica's summoned, and what the lead Heather wants her to do is use her handwriting talents to write a fake letter to Martha Dunstock, aka Dump Truck, like from one of the jock boys, basically like a romance letter to, you know, saying that he wants Martha or whatever.
And Martha's like this like overweight, like not attractive looking girl. And like actually when they were doing the casting for that, they said it was really awkward. Like the casting directors didn't want to put out a call for like a truly overweight, like unattractive person. They kept sending in like slightly plump, attractive looking people instead. And they're like, no, we actually need this person to be the person who's like at the low end of the totem pole at school. And the actor they got, her name was Carrie Lynn. She seemed to have like a pretty good attitude about it and anyway, and like was like not bothered. Like she knows like who she is, and she was happy to like play the role. I mean, Martha's not supposed to be a character you look down on either in the movie. She's supposed to be one of the kind of the good guys. So
Right.
And this fake letter thing. Oh, sorry.
Oh yeah, it's the fake letter thing is so cruel, but like also true. It's like this has a ring of truth to it, and
somebody did that to me once, to be honest, but I kind of like, I'd seen Heather's, I think, by that point, and I was like, oh, you're trying to do that shit? Like, fuck you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that really rang true. And then we've got this fake letter thing going on, and then like you're looking through the cafeteria and you see like all the other people. We already talked about Martha. You see JD in flashes at first, like sitting in a corner. I think he's actually in a black trench coat. Is it a trench coat?
I think it might be. He's got his black trench coat. He's got his earring. He's got his like longish hair.
Yeah, a little shaggy hair, not too long, but yeah. And he's the rebel in the corner. And then we also see Kurt and Ram. Like one of those is the guy that's the letter supposed to be from. They're these like football jocks who are like kind of dumb and obsessed with sex and sexualizing Heather and Veronica, like talking about them at the table. Then you see like extracurricular guy. That's what I call him. I think he's supposed to be the head of the newspaper or something, but he might also be student council. And he's also running like a drive for hungry people. Like he's always talking about like putting things on his like school applications.
Yeah, that's a good extracurricular guy. That's perfect.
Yeah. Then you have a table of geeks, which I do have a slight quibble with. They are like super exaggerated. Like they're like the geekiest looking geeks ever. And like their glasses are ridiculous. And one of them keeps snorting milk in every scene. And then Veronica also runs into Betty Finn in the cafeteria. And Betty Finn is her old friend that she kind of like ditched a little bit to be with the Heathers. And Betty's showing her these old pictures of them at Halloween. And Heather's like move her on from Betty Finn like very quickly. And Betty's like one of the more likable characters, I think, in the movie.
Yeah, she seems so sweet. It's like she kind of gets it. She kind of gets why her friend has dumped her. You know, she just seems like a genuine sweet person.
Yeah, she doesn't hold it against Veronica. And Veronica, right, to be fair, is still nice to Betty, so that's good.
That's true. Yes, that scene, like, you kind of, like, I don't know about you, but I was, like, cringing. I had forgotten how she treated Betty in that opener with the pictures, and I was like, oh my gosh, is she just going to be so cruel to her? But she wasn't, and I was like, all right, cool, Veronica.
Yeah. You know what? In the musical that we were talking about before, one of the decisions they made that I didn't like was they had... Veronica was initially friends with Martha. She dumps Martha, and then she does the letter against Martha. And JD is mad at Veronica for betraying her friend. And I'm like, really? Like, you're making Veronica less likable and JD more likable at the same time? Like, really? That's a weird choice. Anyway, like, JD's really the one with the moral compass here? I don't know.
So then they have this lunchtime poll question, which it seems like they do daily, weekly?
No. Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
And on this particular day, it's, okay, you win $5 million in the publisher's sweepstakes. And on the same day, aliens land on the Earth and say they're going to blow up the world in 2 days. What do you do? And everyone gives like these really ridiculous answers. I mean, it is a ridiculous.
Oh, I've got a clip too. I've got a clip for this too. But like first, I don't have a clip of this part. They talk to these popular people that are like I guess they're slightly less popular than the Heathers, but they're still kind of preppy jerks and whatever. And like they give like one of the guys is like, oh, I'd have my dad invested in the stock market, which is ridiculous because like the world's going to blow up in 2 days.
And then there's a girl that's like, I would give it all to the homeless in this super fake pious way.
Yeah. And she's kind of she's a jerk in the movie too. You get to see her later being a jerk. Yeah. And then like Veronica's like, why can't we talk to different kinds of people? Which brings Heather to say like my favorite line in the movie, fuck me gently with a chainsaw. It is. It's just so evocative. I mean, seriously. I'll say that sometimes, just like, fuck me with a chainsaw. Is that one that James quoted too, or is that just me?
If not him, I feel like that's just a quotable one. Maybe it's you that's, you know, in my mind the quoter of that line, but I feel like that's a quoted line.
So then they do end up talking to some other people, like different kinds of people, and this is a great montage. These are some of their answers to the lunchtime polls. I'm going to play that clip.
So this is what's called a lunchtime poll. You win $5 million in the publisher sweepstakes.
And the same day that What's-His-Face gives you the check,
Aliens land on Earth and say they're gonna blow up the world in 2 days. What are you gonna do with the money?
I'd go to Egypt. With a girl.
I'd use the money for an end-of-the-world get-together.
I pay him down $1 million to sit on my face and have a ride like the Kentucky Derby.
It's gotta be the most spooky-ass question I ever heard.
All right, this is important. After taxes only beginning...
She should pay me, though.
You go to the zoo and you get a lion. And then you put a remote control bomb up its butt.
And then there's Social Security, legal fees.
Push the button on the bomb and you and the lion die like one.
What?
That fucking lion guy gets me, man. I had a hard time not laughing.
What?
It is better if you can see their faces. Yeah, the what girl's kind of like the burnout girl. Like, I actually feel like the lion guy's a stoner too. Like, there's a lot of druggies in the movie, in the scene, I think. Yeah. An extracurricular guy's the one worried about the taxes.
Yes.
So I want your answer to this question, Zoe. Like, just pretend you're asked this question. What would you say?
Oh my gosh.
It doesn't matter what you like, what reaction, anything.
I think that I would want to like get all my friends and family together and like have just like this wild end of the world like debaucherous party somewhere amazing. But
so that's like similar to Betty Finn.
I mean, I probably have a different kind of party in mind than she does.
Yeah,
you know, I like it. Party. Why not?
So my answer was that I was thinking I don't have my passport right now, or I might go abroad, even though it takes a lot of time on the plane. But I was thinking, and this is so dippy, but like I was thinking, I just want to go to Disney World and go to a Disney World resort and swim in a pool. Because I'm thinking if it happened right now when it's winter, I want to go to Disney World, swim in a pool, go to the resort, just try to forget that the world's about to end and ride ridiculous rides. Okay, that would be my answer. But then when I really thought about it, I was like, if everybody knew the world was going to end in 2 days, shit would be chaotic. And nobody's going to work at the airport. Nobody's going to fly the plane. Nobody's going to run the rides at Disney World. Okay. Like, so you couldn't do that. So I was like, what would I actually do? I don't even know. And $5 million probably wouldn't even mean anything because people are like, what does money matter? We're going to die in 2 days.
It's a really good point.
I know. Like, because once you think about the question a little too much, it kind of falls apart, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I guess there's no way to interpret it as like you are the only one with this information about the world ending in 2 days.
Yeah, maybe if you were the only person, like then you could you could figure it out, right? And you could pass on to a couple of your friends, or you could say, "Oh, I was diagnosed with the disease. I'm going to die in 2 days, so come to my party," or whatever.
Yeah, but I have to say also, I don't hate JD's answer.
Okay, so I've got a clip of that too. So we're gonna play. This is a clip of both meeting JD and his answer to the poll, and then it's gonna do a little more with JD. So we'll play that.
Hello, Jason Dean.
Greetings and salutations. You a Heather?
No, I'm a Veronica. Sawyer. This may seem like a really stupid question.
There are no stupid questions.
You inherit $5 million the same day aliens land on the Earth and say they're going to blow it up in 2 days. What do you do?
That's the stupidest question I've ever heard.
Who's that guy in the coat think he is, anyways? Bo Diddley? Veronica's into his act, no doubt.
I don't know, probably row out to the middle of a lake somewhere, bring along a bottle of tequila, my sax, and some Bach.
How very.
Come on, Veronica.
Later.
Definitely.
Let's kick his ass. Shit, Ram. We're seniors, man. We're too old for that kind of crap. Let's give him a good scare, though.
You gonna eat this?
And what did your boyfriend say when you told him you were moving to Sherwood, Ohio?
Answer him, Dick.
Hey, Ram,
Doesn't this cafeteria have a no fags allowed rule? Oh, yeah. They seem to have an open door policy for assholes, though, don't they?
What did you say, dickhead?
I'll repeat myself.
Okay, so that's the intro to JD. So first, like, let's go to his survey question. So you say you don't hate his answer. Like, I found his answer a little cheesy, but like, what do you like about it? Tell me.
I mean, it is a little cheesy. We definitely don't see him, like loving his sax at other times or like really caring about classical music. So, maybe he's trying to like get into his pants a little.
What is with the sax and the Bach at the same time? Like, is he going to play like a Bach composition with saxophone, or is he going to listen to the Bach and then I
did have a good laugh about that, and then I went and looked it up. I was like, oh yeah, Bach for sax, but apparently there are many arrangements, and it's a thing. So
what?
Yeah, okay. I mean, I don't think Bach wrote for saxophone, but people have since arranged for saxophone. So who knew? Not me.
Thank you for looking that up. I feel edified now.
If a high school boy had said that to me in high school, I would have been instantly in love.
Well, yeah, rowing out to the middle of the lake. That sounds good. I could get with that part anyway. Yeah, and it's certainly, other than Betty Finn's answer, it certainly seems sane compared to the other answer. Yeah,
but the rest of his actions a little less sane in that clip.
Well, yeah. Well, then he also has his. Before we talk about that, he's also got his greetings and salutations. Like, I mean, I think in the 80s that played as cool, and today it would seem like an affectation.
Oh yeah.
Or maybe it played as cool when I was in high school and I was a little pretentious myself, and now it seems like an affectation.
Which it clearly I think is. I know it's like a cliche to compare his performance in this movie, Christian Slater's, to Jack Nicholson, but like it can't be denied. And like that moment is one of the ones where it's like you can close your eyes and just imagine Jack Nicholson saying those lines.
So Lee and I were talking, like Lee was laughing at several points in the movie about how much he was like Jack Nicholson. Like he hadn't seen the movie in like years and years. And like, I guess Christian Slater really did like Jack Nicholson and he like admired his performance. He mentioned like Witches of Eastwick as one of the performances he admired. But like, it wasn't clear whether he was actually doing a Nicholson impersonation or whether like it was a combination of he admired Jack Nicholson and his voice is kind of naturally like that. Because the director said his voice is kind of naturally like that. But I think there was a real missed opportunity. Sometime in the 90s, there really should have been a movie, like maybe a Scorsese movie where like Nicholson is like Christian Slater's dad and they're like doing a heist together or some shit. I don't know. Like something. That would have been something interesting to have in the film record.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
I wonder, maybe Jack Nicholson wouldn't have liked it. I don't know. I wonder what he thought about this movie. Anyway. Okay, so then, you were talking about his other actions in the scene. So
yeah, we heard the jock boys kind of giving him a hard time, and he pulls out a real gun and shoots them with blanks.
Yeah, we only find out they're blanks in the next scene, too.
Yes.
Like, I mean, when you were watching that movie for the first time, you might think, oh my God, he actually shot these guys. Like, what is this movie doing?
Yeah.
But I don't remember that first viewing anymore. Yeah, I love his line, though, when he's like, I guess they've got an open door policies for assholes, though, don't they? I always feel like, yeah, suck it when he says that.
Yeah, anyway. I mean, that little moment, I mean, it's weird because, like, he then, takes this like psychotic perhaps action with the gun. But like that whole scene for me is like encapsulates the attractiveness of JD. Maybe that says a lot about me. But I would have definitely found him incredibly appealing in high school. For that whole scene. Just like that little moment.
Yeah, like this was before like school shootings were really in the public consciousness. This was before like people were afraid to go to school in that way. It's like this guy comes into your like pastel and like color coordinated high school and like breaks up the monotony, kind of breaks up the hierarchy a little bit. Like that was the appeal, I think. The outsider, like James Dean. Like the characters he's being kind of modeled for. Oh, also I saw other references for his name. So like JD could stand for James Dean. In the movie, they also said it can stand for juvenile delinquent in a way, like in a subconscious way. And then I was like, J.D. Salinger too, because apparently they originally wanted Catcher in the Rye to be one of the books that they use in the movie, but they were not allowed to. But I feel like there's an unconscious association there with J.D. Salinger as well.
Yeah. Interesting call.
So yeah, then in the next scene, they're playing croquet and they're talking about what JD did. And Heather McNamara, the yellow Heather, says, God, they won't expel him. They'll just suspend him for a week or something. So like that was probably true in the 80s. Like if you had brought a gun with blanks, you probably wouldn't have gotten expelled. Maybe some places, but people were way more lenient, I think, at that time. Do you think anyway? That's the impression I have at that time.
I don't know for sure. I mean, my brother got in trouble for bringing a knife to school when he was in kindergarten. So that would have been only a couple of years after this. It was like a knife that was on, he had like another tool. Like I want to say it was a wrench with like, like a Swiss Army folding knife
like
thing.
a multi-tool, yeah.
Yeah, like some kind of little multi-tool. And he wasn't even like threatening anyone. He got in trouble for having the blade. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Like it felt believable to me in the context of the time, like that JD wouldn't be expelled. But yeah, who knows? Certainly things that other teenagers did in movies at the time that were pretty outrageous. They never got in trouble for in 80s movies. So
yeah.
And then, but Daniel Waters, the author in the movie, said today he would be on the news, like he would be expelled and put in jail. And yeah, that's pretty clearly the case.
Yeah,
I think. So yeah, other part of the croquet scene that's important to note is we see Heather Chandler, the Red Heather's personality illustrated through the croquet game. I guess I don't really understand the rules of croquet too much, but I guess she has a chance to either score her own point or knock Heather Duke, the green Heather, out of the game, and she chooses to knock Heather Duke out. And she's also pissed at Heather Duke because she asked if she could be red when I'm always red.
I know the way that she's like talking about that, like, first of all, like this horror that you've committed,
Yeah.
You dared ask.
Okay, so like moving on, we have the scene with Veronica and her parents. Like you do see the parents in this movie, but very little, and they're so ineffectual. It's meant to be that way. It's meant to show like this very surfacey relationship. They do these things where Veronica sits briefly with her parents, and they all have these like lines that they say, and the almost the exact same dialogues repeated a couple times. So yeah, do you want to do like sort of a mini every rom-com theater? Like I can be the dad and the mom, and you can be the Veronica. Would that work?
Okay, sure.
Okay, so I'm the dad and the mom. So this is the dad. God damn, won't somebody tell me why I read all these spy novels?
Because you're an idiot.
Oh yeah, that's it. You too.
This is great pate, but I've got a motor if I want to be ready for that party tonight.
Yeah. So that's Veronica and her parents' relationship. There was a little bit in that scene before where they talk about like the mom's asking her if she has any contenders for prom or something like that.
See, that's actually part of their like little script too, is the dad will be like, how was the first day back after whatever? And then she's like, fine or whatever. And then the mom's like says something about prom. It's like, that's also part of their little script.
I guess so. Yeah. That also gets repeated. Yeah. But like all these lines will get repeated again in different contexts. Like the next time it's like, it's great pate, but I've got a motor if I want to be ready for that funeral tonight. Which it's like, and that just like, it just shows how nothing these interactions are, kind of like a party, a funeral, same difference kind of,
Yeah.
It's showing you how out of touch and how rote everything is.
But not unloving, in its own way. It's like they're
in
not,
its own way.
They're not, I don't know, cruel parents.
Yeah. It's interesting. In the commentary, they pointed out there's a scene later where Veronica asks JD, do you like your dad? And he's like, I don't know. I've never given the matter much thought. And they were saying like that's one of the points they were kind of trying to make, that teenagers like aren't really thinking too much about their parents. They're thinking about their own drama. And that's how the parents are kind of useless in the movie. Like they're an afterthought.
Yeah.
And I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
So we come now to a convenience store scene where Veronica goes in to buy something for Heather and ends up running into JD. They wanted to use 7-Eleven, but 7-Eleven didn't want to be associated with the movie. So they have to call it the Snappy Snack Shack. And with Turbo Dogs is one of their products. And like they're kind of like JD and Veronica kind of have this like flirtatious scene in the 7-Eleven, and she's like sucking on a red licorice thing. Like she's wearing this really cute outfit in that scene too, like this like gray like shirt like that's off the shoulder and this like black overall dress. Sorry, I get like really into Winona Ryder's fashion choices in these movies. Well, whatever was given to her anyway.
Oh
and
yeah,
like
she's got some good ones in this movie. Are we going to talk about that in a bit?
We can talk about it now. It's fine.
Okay, the fashion in this movie cracks me up because like most of the Heathers wear these like gigantic, ridiculous blazers. It is just like Blazer City with like really like double-breasted, like shoulder pad.
But that's the 80s, man. That is the 80s.
Is this like people really dress like this?
There were for real suits like that in the 80s. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It
wasn't as much in high school. You didn't see it as much in like a regular public high school. I think it's more like a prep school kind of a look, or like an older woman kind of a look. But I think it kind of makes it, yeah, kind of like right after this, there's actually like a line where Veronica says, it's just like they're people I work with and our job is being popular and shit. I think it kind of makes them look like professional, popular people in a way, you know?
Yeah. But like the main Heather, Red Heather, she even has like a double-breasted blazer bathrobe in a scene later. I don't know if you noticed that.
No, that's funny.
I think it's just hilarious, just over the top Blazer City. But Winona Ryder does have some really cute outfits. There's one where it's like she's got this like super long vest. It's almost like in a formal wear, menswear vest style, but just like super long. And she's got this shirt under it with like a million buttons. I think that one's really cute.
I'm like obsessed with her blue tights, blue shoes, blue ruffled skirt look. Like the blue tights, like just they're great. I just want that. I want everything she's got going on in that. And like there's a scene where she's wearing like a gray jacket with a black crop top and a blue ruffle skirt that I'm like, that entire outfit. Yes. Winona Ryder's fashion from the 90s is really like all on my like please I want it list, but I don't think I would pull it off right now in my 44-year-old body the way that she did in her like 15-year-old body per se.
Right. I really like that black crop top outfit too, but I had the same thought. Like I would not wear that at this point in my life. I probably wouldn't have when I was 15 either, but I definitely wouldn't wear it now, even though I like it.
Yeah, I would have worn it when I was 19. I should have gotten on it at that point, but so as Veronica and JD leave the convenience store, there is like a really good line where she says, I don't really like my friends. He says, yeah, I don't really like your friends either. And then that's where she says, it's just like they're people I work with and our job is being popular and shit. And then he says something like, why don't you take a vacation? So I think that was a really good, like kind of meeting JD scene and building up to their eventual romance.
Yeah. A little bit of redemption after his like shooting blank. So you feel like makes the relationship and the attraction more believable. So this big party that she's going to, the one that she had to jet from the Pate with her parents for, is this really big deal party at Remington University. And the main Heather has like pulled some strings to get them into this party. And it looks super miserable. What do you think?
It looks fucking terrible. I didn't go to parties like it's like some stupid frat party. I guess it was filmed in an actual frat house, and like I never went to that kind of shit. I didn't go to schools that had that kind of shit really, but like man, these guys that like Heather introduces her to are so patronizing, such assholes, and they're just like really predatory and date rapey. Basically, it's just their dialogue is horrible. All of it. I just like I want to slap them the whole time.
Yeah, that little clip from the trailer where the guy's like, I just want to get laid is like one of these jerks where she's like already well into like rejecting him and he's just like, yeah, that's his best line. Like, come on.
Yeah, he also addresses Veronica as, how's my little cheerleader, huh? It's like, she's not even a fucking cheerleader. Like shut the fuck up. Like, what are you doing? God, I can't stand that guy. Like, they did a good job playing jerks.
They did. Total jerks. So Veronica's ready to leave. She's not feeling well. Heather is like, no, I pulled a lot of strings to get you into this party. You're going to stay. And then Veronica pukes all over her shoes, which, big rift in their friendship.
Yeah, Heather's basically like, you're over on Monday. Like, nobody's going to let you play their reindeer games. So she's like basically threatened Veronica with social exile. One thing I wanted to point out, though, about this scene, though, too, is that like there's a scene with Heather Chandler and the college guy that she's like supposedly sort of dating. And like, it's really sad because like she's trying to like make some kind of connection or be at the party. And he's like pressuring her to have sex that she seems to not want to have. And he basically, like, when she gives in, he pushes her head down into his lap. And it's like, at that moment, I felt really sorry for Heather Chandler. And I felt like this is sort of an illustration of how she's like shitting on everyone at her school, but she's also, being oppressed, being like harmed by this like older guy who's like taking advantage of her like belief that like maybe there's something between them just to get sex, and he doesn't value her at all. So I just kind of felt sad for her. Like, as women, like, even the bitchiest among us, I think, have to deal with some shit from guys from time to time that isn't great. Yeah.
Great point.
Oh, yeah. So this scene also introduces something I didn't really notice when I was watching the movie, but like there's a repeated theme of Veronica burning her hand on things. In this scene, like she's at this party feeling miserable and she puts her hand over a flame until it hurts. And and that's the first time that happens in the movie. And then she inadvertently starts a fire in a trash can at the same time. And the whole scene is like with a montage too of her with her Dear Diary dialogue over it. She says, "Dear Diary, I want to kill, and you have to believe it's for more than selfish reasons. I must stop Heather. Tomorrow I'll be kissing her aerobicized ass, but tonight let me dream of a world without Heather, a world where I am free." So like you see her partly at the party and then partly writing in her diary back in her room. Like after the scene, we have Veronica in her room finishing her diary entry when JD pops in at her window and comes in. This was like a whole thing too, like in like the 80s and 90s, like guys coming in the window. I guess it's reminiscent of Romeo and Juliet to some extent, but like, dude,
Clarissa explains it all.
Oh, I didn't see that.
You didn't watch that show?
No.
Oh, that was
Dawson's Creek did that too, I think. Yeah, and Scream, but of course how that turned out.
Well, Clarissa explains it all. It was just like her best friend, and he would just pop into her window. It was a Nickelodeon show.
Yeah, this was like a thing. And like, if somebody fucking tried to go in my window, like now, I'd just like hit them over. I'd be like, who the fuck, what the fuck are you? I think I was going to be killed. I don't know.
Seriously. No, I don't want anyone in my window. No, thank you.
It's like a charming romantic thing that he comes in through the window. And this cuts directly from that to like, we see the aftermath of what is a strip croquet game. And like, they have had sex like immediately. And like, people might think that's fast. I ended up losing my virginity like to a guy. I'd worked with him, but we never like started dating. And like the same night that we felt a spark between the two of us, we had sex, and that was it. And then we were dating. So it seemed realistic enough to me. You don't see this in teen movies anymore, though. You almost never even see it implied that people have had sex at all. Or if they do, it's like the girl just being like, I want it to be special, and we have to have like a nice hotel room with my nice nightie. And I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, that's so it's so unrelatable to me, because like I was much more like Veronica in this movie, who presumably isn't even a virgin from some of the dialogue in the film. Like, it's so much more relatable to me to like, you're attracted to the guy, you're a teenager with out of control hormones, you have sex. Yeah. You don't have to fuss around about it.
And it's, I don't know. I think it's refreshing. I mean, that whole, like, it has to be so special, whatever. Like, it's just not that interesting. I'd rather it just like be a little more glossed over. It's just, more of just like a part of human life. Even if it isn't realistic, I don't know what's realistic.
And now JD has got some ideas about Heather Chandler. He says, Heather Chandler is one bitch that deserves to die, which in the context of the movie seemed sort of charming at the time. Like, it's like you think it's a throwaway comment, like it's no big deal. Like, Veronica thinks he's basically, just speaking offhand. And she says, killing her won't solve anything. I say we just grow up, be adults, and die. And yeah, like at the time, like this doesn't make JD seem crazy yet.
Right, because she had just been writing the same thing in her diary. She was upset after the party, and she's kind of calmed down. But it's still like it's within the realm of like the way that they talk in this.
Yeah. So yeah, this is not a big morbid scene yet. This is kind of a sexy scene, like the guy kind of listening to his girlfriend and sticking up for her against, this bully. So yeah.
But they do decide then to get some revenge. In Veronica's mind, not death, but she still wants to get her back she wants to make her throw up after this party where Veronica had thrown up on her shoes. So they sneak into her house, and Veronica's like, oh, we're going to mix some like milk and orange juice, and she's going to drink it. It's going to be so gross. Meanwhile, JD pours some like Drano, some kind of chemical into a cup, and they're kind of joking.
Yeah, it's deliberately not called Drano, I noticed. Like, it's probably another company that was not interested in having their product in this movie.
For sure, yes. Yes, good point.
Yeah.
A generic drain cleaner in a cup.
Yes.
And, they're joking like, oh my gosh, don't be ridiculous. But then Veronica kind of grabs the wrong cup, and they go upstairs,
and she grabs the wrong cup because they make out. Like, these two are constantly making out in this section of the movie. So while they're making out, she puts her hand on the wrong cup. And JD sees this and he's about to stop her. And he's kind of like, oh, well, like, yeah. This is how casual JD's attitude about Heather Chandler's life is.
So they go and find her sleeping in her like blazer bathrobe, her like double-breasted blazer bathrobe, which is my least favorite and also favorite fashion of the movie because it just cracks me up. And so they're like, here, we brought you this like hangover remedy, and she's, skeptical.
But JD basically dares her, though. Basically, like, dares her to do it, and she drinks it because she has to prove she's a tough bitch. And also, you kind of don't expect people to give you drain cleaner, I think.
Yeah, right, that's right. Maybe a little milk and orange juice, something gross. Yeah. But she drinks it, and then, yeah, it's a pretty intense scene that comes next.
Yeah, like I think it was a well done death because it's not like super graphic, but at the same time, her acting in the scene, like where she's choking, is just, it's hard to watch actually. And yeah, her mouth is kind of bluish. And then she crashes into this like this glass coffee table, which, okay, this part is odd though. She's choking, crashes into the glass coffee table. She's finally dead. Like when she hits, she doesn't make any noises after that. And I'm like, it's a little bit of a magical coffee table, but I don't know.
So like the coffee table is the blow that killed her?
I don't know. I don't know how to interpret that. Yeah. Like maybe she was already dead before she hit the coffee table. I don't know. But anyway, she's dead. And you see Veronica and JD like on either side of her, like standing over her. And so first you get a brief moment of Veronica freaking out that she's going to go to jail. But then JD sees a cliff notes of the bell jar lying on the floor. And this is where the let's make it look like a suicide idea is planted. And like, I think it's perfect that she's reading the cliff notes of the bell jar, by the way, because that is not a hard book to read.
I did not notice what it was that he was looking at.
Oh yeah, well, I read the bell jar in high school. I don't think anyone would assign that in high school, quite frankly, just because it is like about, depression and suicidal thoughts and everything like that. But they just don't assign stuff like that usually. But it's perfect. She's reading the cliff notes for it.
Yeah, that's good.
So because Veronica can copy the handwriting, then she sits down to write like a fake suicide note. And this is the text of the first suicide note. To me, though, suicide is the natural answer to the myriad problems that life has given me. People think just because you're beautiful and popular, life is easy and fun. No one understood that I had feelings too. I die knowing no one knew the real me. So that's that will be Heather Chandler's legacy now, going for the rest of the movie. And yeah, what's interesting is they're commenting on like the aesthetics of the suicide note, since this is kind of a satire. Like Veronica's like, she would never use the word myriad because she missed it on her vocab test. And then JD's like, oh, it's a emblem of her failures or something like that. So of course she would use it. And then that comes up in like a subsequent scene where we see a bunch of people at the school, the teachers, principal, counselor, talking about the suicide note. And the English teacher's like, I was very impressed by her use of the word myriad.
Which Which, yeah, that's pretty fun. Like, now that you mentioned it, that didn't really strike me as so funny watching it, but it actually is hilarious that they would be sitting around like dissecting her note.
So that scene, what do you think of this school staff meeting scene in general?
Yeah, this is interesting. I feel like this is one of those scenes that like sets it in the 80s, right? Because there's like the hippie teacher, counselor, whoever she is, who's like wanting to get in touch with like the feelings, and all the other staff members are kind of rolling their eyes at her a little bit. I don't feel like that scene would make sense in a movie set now.
Overall, it's considered a good thing to care about kids' feelings.
Yeah, I feel like if there was a big event like this, a suicide of a popular kid, I don't know, the going straight to the touchy-feely type stuff seems to me like that would be, I mean, I don't know. I don't have kids in high school. I haven't been in high school for a long time, but that just seems like that's what people would do instead of rolling their eyes about it, you know?
Yeah, they wouldn't roll their eyes about it. But like, what's interesting though is this Pauline, the counselor hippie lady. She's not really portrayed either though as being very necessarily warm-hearted and kind, as opposed to like that's the image she has of herself, I think, because she just says ridiculous things throughout the movie, and it seems like she's more interested in the spectacle of it all than she is in the actual individual humans involved. Like she's like, we must revel in this revealing moment, and it's like her big moment to like have something to do, I guess, you know?
That's that is a good point. I mean, I do think that can be how people who are like that are, though, that like, you know, if they kind of revel in the tragedy. I can think of some people in my life who are like that. I think that's realistic.
It depends. Yeah, it depends on the person. There's definitely good-spirited people who would want to have this type of a, event to bring the school together. And then there's other people who are like, this is more about me, like some need I have. Yeah. So we also see like the rest of the school, other students, etc., like reacting to Heather's death. And you see like one kind of like maybe like a stoner girl like saying like, oh, sorry about your friend. I thought she was just your average like flaky rich girl or something, but she was really deep or something. I can't remember what she exactly says, but like Heather's like sort of redeemed in the eyes of the school.
But everybody, like most of the people at the school do seem to be kind of turning it around to be about them as well. Like they want to talk about how they knew her. And the yearbook, they're excited to get to do this layout about Heather. The quote is, Westerberg finally got one of these things and I'm not going to blow it. So they're like excited to have this opportunity to make this memorial layout.
Yeah, got one of these things as in got a suicide. Like it's a trend and like now they get to have one. It's yeah. I mean, this is all part of the satire. Yeah. And then there's a TV interview that like JD and Veronica are watching. And like you said, everyone, it's making them about them. Like, oh, we went on a date once, or like, oh, like I always liked seeing her at this and that. But they're just like trying to get on TV essentially and like get their moment on air. We also get to now meet JD's dad, who comes in while they're watching the suicides on the TV. And they've got this weird thing going where JD calls his dad son and JD's dad calls him dad. Like, and they kind of reverse their roles. And they're also at the same time talking to each other as if they're in some kind of sitcom initially. So it's like levels of like distance in a way from each other. And the dad, meanwhile, it becomes obvious through his dialogue that he's some kind of sort of psychotic developer who blows buildings up or sabotages them in some way in order to be able to develop real estate like that's on historic property, etc. So you do have, like I was saying at the beginning of the podcast, that this didn't really have necessarily an anti-consumerist view that Gen X movies have. But then I was like, wait a second, JD's dad sort of represents capitalism in this, like, in my opinion, like sort of violent capitalism.
Oh, yeah.
So there is sort of a subtle anti-capitalism in this movie too.
Yeah, interesting. And he comes in with his like video tape of this building demolition, right? And like interrupts their TV watching to like watch this building blow up. It's very strange.
Yeah, definitely. We see where JD gets it from.
And their whole house, like their house is just like weights and exercise equipment. There's just something like really, I don't know, creepy about his dad.
Oh yeah.
Just like weights,
for sure.
Weights and bombs. That's
He was early for Fight Club. Maybe he's Tyler Durden. Anyway. Okay, so now we get to the funeral, Heather's funeral, and this is like really played up. Like this is like where the satire like is really starting to come out. I love the preacher's line. So we open with this preacher saying, "I blame not Heather, but rather a society that tells its youth that the answers can be found in the MTV video games. We must pray that the other teenagers of Sherwood, Ohio, know the name of that righteous dude who can solve their problems. It's Jesus Christ, and he's in the book." I couldn't get a clip of him, but I love that line. Oh my God. Like, and I love how he says the MTV video games.
Yes.
Like he just puts them together like that, because it just like, I'm sure this is just satirizing how out of touch people are who blame people's deaths like on, oh, it was that rock band, or it was like that video game, you know?
Yeah. And that seems to have died down, but that was a huge deal when I was a kid. Like, I remember, it's all the video games, all the first person shooters. That's what is behind all the violence in schools and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, like, to blame suicide or violence on like any one cause, on any one cultural artifact, I think is short-sighted. Like, I think maybe like you could make an argument if somebody's like 100% addicted to that stuff 24/7, that could be a contributing factor. But it's like, these things aren't going to turn somebody who's like got an otherwise balanced life, into violence, in my opinion.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll talk about that a little more later too, I think. Yeah. But let's continue with this funeral. So then we get to see this really great scene of all these different people from the school leaning over Heather's grave and their internal monologue while they're sort of like, while they sort of appear to be praying. And I have a clip of that I'm going to play.
Oh God, this is a tragic thing, and sometimes I have a hard time dealing with it and stuff. Please send Heather to heaven and all that.
Dear God, please make sure this never happens to me, because I don't think I can handle suicide. Fast early acceptance into an Ivy League school, and please let it be Harvard. Amen.
Jesus, God in heaven, why'd you have to kill such hot snatch? It's a joke, man. Jeez, people are so serious. Hail Mary, who art in heaven, pray for all the sinners, so we don't get caught. Another joke, man.
I prayed for the death of Heather Chandler many times, and I felt bad every time I did it, but I kept doing it anyway. Now I know you understood everything. Praise Jesus. Hallelujah.
Hi, I'm sorry. Technically, I did not kill Heather Chandler, but hey, who am I trying to kid, right? I just want my high school to be a nice place. Amen. Did that sound bitchy?
The "did that sound bitchy" is just perfection.
Those are so great. And I know they're supposed to be funny, but they're probably also somewhat realistic. I mean, assuming that a death like this would be realistic, but I do feel like that's what would be going through those characters' heads,
Yeah, like the first one you hear is like Heather McNamara, who's like the kind of the nice Heather, I would say. And the one who said that she prayed for Heather's death many times is Heather Duke, the green Heather. Yeah, no, but it's like the scene is very perfect because even when somebody dies, it doesn't mean your mind automatically goes into like serious mode all the time. Even if it's someone who's close to you, sometimes you'll have weird thoughts and you'll feel guilty about them. Or you'll be in shock and you'll have like just thoughts about normal things. And like, I think people can feel so guilty about just still being a normal human when somebody has died, but it's nothing to feel bad about. But in this case, it is something to think is hilarious. So now that we've had our first sort of fake suicide in this movie, I just wanted to talk a little bit to give background on like what Daniel Waters was inspired by when writing this movie, like the prominence of teen suicide in the 80s. So apparently suicide rates actually were very high in the 80s and 90s. According to the CDC, which had statistics that went through 2015, teen male suicides were the highest in the mid 80s through the mid 90s. Suicides by teen girls, however, were also really high in the mid-80s and 90s, but they were the highest in 2015 of the records that I was able to see. So it's getting worse for teen girls today, which I think is not particularly surprising with social media. I don't know. Going back to the 80s again, though, I was able to find a New York Times article from October 1984. And in that article, it said that according to the National Institute of Mental Health, the teenage suicide rate has tripled in this country in the last 2 decades, and the suicide rate among young people is increasing 10 times faster than that for any other age group. So this kind of shows you why suicide was such like a major concern at the time. But this same article was also talking about 3 movies of the week that were going to be put out by different broadcast networks about teen suicide. And I found the lead for this article really strange. This is the lead for the article. In recent years, television movies have taken their lead from the headlines and have addressed almost every widely publicized social issue, from nuclear war to child abuse. This year's fashionable topic is teenage suicide, the subject of 3 upcoming television movies. So do you know which part I found funny? Can you tell? Or
Well, I think nuclear war as like a social issue is funny, but what do you think is funny?
Where it said this year's fashionable topic. So like, that's exactly the attitude that Daniel Waters is kind of like satirizing in Heathers, is considering suicide as a fashionable topic. Like it's like the yearbook guy. We finally got one of these. So this article then went on to tell about a couple different TV movies, and I watched one of them. So this is the description of the one that I watched. ABC will enter the ring in January with a 3-hour movie called Surviving, which combines elements of the 2 CBS stories. The first half focuses on 2 teenagers, Zach Galligan and Molly Ringwald, who kill themselves together. In the second half, the emphasis shifts to the impact on their parents. So I watched this movie. I thought I was just going to watch a little bit just to like, check out the tone, but I ended up being like super drawn in, honestly. And it has like this really wild cast. It's got Molly Ringwald, who of course everyone knows from like John Hughes movies. But then it's got Zach Galligan, who I recognize. Apparently he's from Gremlins. It's one of his little siblings is the girl from Poltergeist. And then Ellen Burstyn is in it. Marsha Mason is in it. Like, it's just like bizarre. It's like this big cast of famous people in this like TV movie of the week about teen suicide. And like, while the reason that they commit suicide seems like almost absurd in the movie, like it's really like you have to see it, honestly. Like it starts. No, I mean, if you appreciate this type of artifact, like cultural artifact, I'm putting a link to the YouTube site where I saw it in the show notes. Like, who knows, YouTube might take it down at some point, but I'm sure somebody else will put it up again. But my gosh, it's called Surviving, and yeah, it like the first half, like the reason for the suicide is kind of absurd, but like the family reaction later is kind of moving, actually, and well acted and believable. But I also see like what Daniel Waters was complaining about, like when he talked about like it kind of makes suicide look like it's going to be this attractive or glamorous thing, because there's these shots of this like funeral with everybody all overwrought. There's a shot of like all these black limousines like in a procession that like makes it look so almost romantic. They're like caskets, I think, are right next to each other. So like these 2 people in love buried together. It's like very Romeo and Juliet in that sense. And then like the family, like figuring out like that they didn't appreciate them all along and all this shit. And it's like, I don't think this would necessarily cause suicide, but I don't think it would necessarily prevent suicide either. Or I think it might cause some and prevent others. You know what I mean? I think it kind of probably comes out in the wash in any case.
Yeah.
So in the movie Heathers, like we also have the introduction of a hit anti-suicide song, which in the movie is called Teenage Suicide, Don't Do It, by a band called Big Fun. I didn't realize before, but the fact the band is called Big Fun makes that much funnier.
Well, so the funny thing for me is that I remember that song so vividly from the first time I watched the movie. Like, I really thought it was more prominent, more of like a, I don't know, plot related, or you would hear the whole song, but it is more in the background than I remembered, but it's really funny.
Yeah, it also serves as a plot point later on, which we'll talk about later. And I was trying to find some anti-suicide songs like from the 80s, but like the only one that I could really dig up that was like worth sharing was one I already knew about, which is this 1980 song, which might be one of Queen's worst songs, right up there with I'm in Love with My Car. And it's called Don't Try Suicide. So I'm going to sing you a little bit from this song. It's about the same level as Big Fun's song. Don't try suicide, nobody's worth it. Don't try suicide, nobody cares. Don't try suicide, you're just gonna hate it. Don't try suicide, nobody gives a damn. That's an actual song by Queen.
I mean, they tried, much like ABC tried, I guess. It's probably beyond
in this case, I'm going to give
what
ABC
one pop song can accomplish as well.
In this case, I'm going to give ABC more credit than this song. Like, I love Freddie Mercury. And I love Queen, but this song is not working. Like, if anything, I think I'd want to kill myself more because Queen has just told me that nobody cares. You know what I mean?
Well, no, maybe
it's
they're
like, thanks, Queen.
Suicide isn't this big glamorous thing. You're not going to get this amazing funeral and stick it to your parents. Like, no, I don't know. It doesn't really work. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that might have actually been what they were attempting to do, but like, I'm not sure if it would work on somebody who was actually super depressed. They'd just be, you're right. Nobody does care. That's why I'm killing myself, Freddie Mercury. Like, you don't even care. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. The only other suicide related song that I can think of is the MASH theme song.
Suicide is painless. Yeah, I've never thought about that.
It brings on many changes.
Oh yeah.
I mean, one of those statements is true.
That's weird. Man, well, it's definitely not painless if you drink drain cleaner. Right. So yeah.
That wasn't the true statement.
Don't do it.
I do think it would bring on many changes though. Up to and including death.
In any case, like these are some of the cultural artifacts that like the movie is replicating. And like, yeah, I think the big fun teenage suicide, don't do it. It's about as high quality as that Queen song, maybe even a little more. I don't know. All right, so now we're going to get into the spoiler section. So if you've not seen Heathers, I recommend bowing out now, going to watch it. I think it's still on Amazon Prime, and definitely you can find it at your local library. Check the movie out. So now our spoiler section begins. So Kurt and Ram, who we saw bullying those guys in the funeral scene, they are now going to become the next target of JD and Veronica after Veronica goes with Heather on a double date with them as a favor. And they go cow tipping, which, okay, I had to do research on cow tipping too. I needed to settle once and for all whether cow tipping is a thing. And at least according to the sources I found, cow tipping is not a thing. It has never happened as far as anyone can tell. So if you don't believe me, please look at the show notes. There's an article about it. Do you contest this at all, Zoe?
I don't contest it, but it blows my mind because it was definitely rumored to be a thing when I was in high school. And it was rumored to be a thing by the rednecks, self-proclaimed rednecks, right? Like they would claim to have gone cow tipping. And I love the fact that it's not real and that they were joking about it. I love it. Cool for them.
Well, yeah, apparently like the physics of how you being able to tip a cow like just don't add up, as well as like farmers like will confirm that cows are very wary animals and they would just like walk away from you. Like even at night while they're sleeping, they sleep in this formation, which makes sure that they don't get snuck up on. Like there's whole things. And like, that was like a whole thing. And then they said, if cow tipping is real, why is there not any video of this on YouTube? When you can find a video on YouTube of every other foolish thing that people do. So like basically they can't confirm for sure that a cow has never been tipped, but like they said it would be very difficult. It would be easier to tip a car basically.
I mean,
and
it makes now that you've opened this possibility in my mind, it makes complete sense. Cows are huge. They're animals, like they would just walk away. It makes complete sense. I just haven't thought about it since high school when I just swallowed that line, Oh yeah, rednecks going cow tipping.
Yeah, and I've never heard of anyone say they did it firsthand either that I found to be a credible source. So yeah, we'll see. If anyone has a dispute about this, you can feel free to email us at feedback@everyromcom.com or email the sources that I listed to dispute cow tipping. Anyway, back to the plot of the story though. So Kurt and Ram, Veronica and Heather go on this like cow tipping double date, and Veronica's only doing it as a favor to Heather. But when one of the guys tries to like sleep with her, she blows him off, and somehow JD is on a hill like at their weird rural date site, and like she didn't seem like she was expecting him, and I'm like, how did this happen? Like, how is JD just there? They don't have cell phones, they can't text
he's
each
just
other.
riding around looking for her, I guess, which creepy.
In fields. Or stalking her probably is probably more like believable, like, because that's the only way I think he would have found her in this random field. So he could be stalking her, which is even creepier.
Mm-hmm.
But in the moment, he has a welcome distraction from this cow tipping double date, which, like, if you look in the background too, it looks like I can't remember if I think it's Ram is like trying to date rape Heather. Doesn't it look like that if you watch it? Have you watched it for that?
I noticed that in the background. And I thought that maybe I had missed something. I wasn't sure how consensual that was.
It did not look very consensual, no. And I'm like, that's just kind of a random aside in there. I mean, it works in the satirical spirit of things, but it's certainly like, I'm sure there are people who would be like pretty upset by seeing that too at the same time. So like, I didn't even notice it in the 80s, to be frank. Like, I was just watching Veronica in the foreground. I wasn't even paying attention to the background.
It's blurred in the background. I did notice it, like I said. But again, I thought maybe I had missed a moment of dialogue, or, you know, I wasn't sure about it. Like, it's not, there's nothing that's said, you know, you don't hear her screaming, you know what I mean? Like,
but the body language
it does not look good. But again, it's blurred in the background. I'm not saying it's awesome, but, it's not like a plot point, I guess.
What's interesting about that is like maybe the fact that it's not a plot point is meant to point out that like this is such a normal course of event for the Heathers or the popular people that like Veronica doesn't even take note of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that might be what it's trying to point out, like satirize in a way the ubiquity of this kind of like date rape or sexual pressure in these girls' lives. I think that's one way you could read it that would be like more like, you know, responsible of the filmmakers, I guess.
Which I mean that holds up. That like is part of the party, the college party, you know, it fits with that experience.
Yeah, this is like a really harsh world for these girls. Yeah. So JD shows up on the side of the hill. We don't really know how. And he says to her, "Our love is God. Let's go get a slushie." Which that would work for me better than any of his other pickup lines previously.
I agree. I mean, that, you know, it's JD's smoothness.
And you get a slushie out of it. So
little romantic, okay. I don't know, romantic callback to their 7-Eleven times. Yeah, I like it.
So then the next day, Veronica finds out at school that Kurt and Ram claimed that they had a, quote, sword fight in her mouth the other night, even though she didn't so much as kiss either one of them. And this leads to JD and Veronica planning a revenge on Kurt and Ram. So we heard the first part of the revenge in the trailer, the very bad trailer for Lethal Attraction, where she's pretending to call up Kurt and Ram and being like, "Hi guys, I just really wanted you to make real what you guys talked about we did the other night," or something like that. Like, yeah, she's sexually propositioning them to come and meet her like outside the school the next dawn. And JD and Veronica then are concocting a plan to set it up so it looks like Kurt and Ram have shot each other because they're gay lovers. So this is a scene that would definitely play differently today, because like part of this plan is like JD brings this pile of stuff that's supposed to be related to homosexuality. Like in the commentary, the director and the writer said that when they've seen it with gay audiences, the gay audiences love this. I think probably gay audiences of the 80s probably would have found this amusing, because this movie is not trying to be homophobic. This movie is trying to like be against homophobia. Like the homophobes are not the heroes in this movie, but you could argue that JD and Veronica are also practicing a stereotyping form of homophobia in putting this little pack
I
together
feel
too.
this part
It's
makes me
complicated.
uncomfortable, I have to say, because the gay items are an issue of Stud Puppy magazine, a candy dish. I forget what that is.
Which they call it a candy dish, but it's like really just like a heart-shaped thing of like chocolate candies. I think maybe that was a local term for that. I don't know.
A Joan Crawford postcard.
Yeah, like who would carry that around?
That
too?
bothers me so much. Like some mascara and some mineral water, which they go into a little dialogue about how gay it is to drink mineral water in their part of the world. Yeah, it makes me uncomfortable. That stereotyping level, I just don't really find it funny.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of like it's like this stereotyping pack of things is actually like used later to show how homophobic other people are, but like, so I understand how it functions and why it's there. And I feel like the fact that it's so over the top with the postcard and like mascara, which certainly the writers and director knew was not actually a gay thing. I think it's meant to be so over the top that they're winking at you. Like we're not really believing these things, but I don't know. I think it would play weird today.
I mean, I think you're right. I think that makes sense, but I don't think it's funny now in 2022.
Yeah. And many people like agree with you. Like, many people though go so far as to like say that it makes the whole movie, you know, trying to be homophobic, which I think is kind of missing the purpose anyway of why this scene is in here or why these characters Kurt and Ram are in here. But yeah, we'll get to that in a moment. So they then compose a suicide note. Ram and I died the day we realized we could never reveal our forbidden love to an uncaring and ununderstanding world. The joy we shared in each other's arms was greater than any touchdown, yet we were forced to live the lie of sexist, beer-guzzling jock assholes. So that's going to be their suicide note. But right now, Veronica is under the impression from JD that they are not really going to kill Kurt and Ram in any way. They're going to use what JD refers to as Luga bullets, which are going to only like tranquilize them and put a little surface blood on them, but it'll be long enough for them to be found with these items and this suicide note, and then they'll be a laughing stock. And so Veronica thinks this is mostly harmless at this point and kind of using their own homophobia against them to make them an object of mockery. So interesting thing I found out from the commentary, which I should have realized because I studied German. Ich lüge means I'm lying. So when JD calls them Ich lüge bullets, he's telling Veronica that he's lying to her.
I read somewhere online recently, like while researching for this podcast a little bit, that people are really annoyed by this and they feel like Veronica is like, she's being really stupid in this scene. And that even though, you know, he asks her, do you take German? And she says, no, they feel like she should have been able to figure this out. And that this, you know, if she's so smart and that this scene is like out of character for her because she's supposed to be like this super smart person. But I think even if she did know that they mean I'm lying, if they're like tranquilizer bullets that make someone seem dead, that could actually be a legit name for them. Just throwing that out there.
Well, the other thing is like, and like, I don't know, people are online these days. They're online. That means they have easy access to any information.
That's
right.
True.
If you were like in like Veronica's and him are planning this the night before, right? And like, what's she gonna do? Go to find a German dictionary at like midnight? Like where? Like she doesn't study German. There's no reason she would know that, in my opinion.
But even if
I don't know.
like,
or know
I'm
about
lying bullets. Like if they're making you think someone's dead, it's a legitimate name. Just so it all holds up.
Yeah.
However you want to look at it, I feel like it all holds up.
Well, anyway, they get this plan together. They get these items together. They go to this clearing in the woods behind the school, and Veronica's like playing this like kind of porn stereotype of a girl, and she asked them to stand in a couple circles and take their clothes off and then come towards her and rip her clothes off of her. And they're like all into this. They don't realize they're being set up at all. Like they're just like, sure, all the girls want me or whatever. I don't know. And as soon as the guys like come towards her, JD shoots one of them. Veronica's supposed to shoot the other one. She misses. I think it's Kurt she's supposed to shoot. Yeah, I never tried to tell them apart. I don't know why.
But she misses, she's cracking up. She doesn't really realize what's happening until JD is like, oh my gosh, you missed him? And she's like, yeah, but the look on his face was worth it. And so he takes off after him to chase him down through the woods. And I guess...
Which my husband wants to point out, this chase scene is super unrealistic because you've got chain smoking JD trying to like capture the quarterback or whatever. Like good fucking luck.
And he does, doesn't he? He takes him over.
Yeah. He mostly does it by like running like in weird patterns or something and reversing him around or something. But like, yeah, I still have a hard time with that. But yeah. So eventually, like, JD and Veronica have chased them down. Veronica ends up shooting the second guy after all, probably out of panic. I don't know. And actually, I don't think she's 100% accepted that the other guy's dead yet. It seems like she's in this like denial zone at the moment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's the moment of like clarity has not come to her yet in this forest scene.
So when we hear these cops approaching, and Veronica and JD run off back to their car. So like Veronica and JD have escaped by being in their car and pretending to make out. One of the cops sees them like half naked and just assumes they had nothing to do with the gunshots they heard. He goes back to the scene. The other cop has found the mineral water, and like the cop says, I can explain everything that happened to you here. He holds up the mineral water, and the other guy realizes immediately that they were gay somehow. And this is like the payoff of these items. Like JD was right. People in this area are so homophobic and they have such stereotypes that they assume two guys with a mineral water must be gay or something.
Yeah.
And then they read the letter and they're like, they are very homophobic in their language towards the two guys. And they're like, what a waste. So this movie is not on the side of homophobia. Like, I mean, as much as we can object to like how it handled the topic at the time, like these cops are supposed to be dumb and homophobic and not admirable people, nor are Kurt and Ram and their bullying supposed to be considered admirable. So I don't know. It's hard to say how you could have done this differently. Maybe just had the note without the items.
It wouldn't be as
funny.
I just feel like the item,
because they're not making fun of gay
items
people
are
here.
over the top. It's the postcard that gets me, to be perfectly honest, because it just seems so ridiculous. But maybe the ridiculousness is part of it. I don't feel that way about the other ridiculous things in this movie, though. That one just like irks me.
Yeah, it's all trying to be part of a satire, and I think like it's just like it's being that ridiculous to show that like we don't really think this is what gay people are like, or like we don't really have this stereotype, but we know that these people do have this stereotype and that they are going to fall for it anyway. Okay, so now we get to the aftermath of Kurt and Ram's death, and finally we see Veronica and JD in the car the next day, and Veronica feels so much guilt when she realizes what they've done. She burns herself with the car cigarette lighter. And then JD takes her hand and lights his cigarette off of her arm. Like, is that even possible?
Seriously,
I don't know.
It.
And then Veronica's telling JD she didn't want them dead. And like, JD's like, did too. And she's like, did not, did too. And they're having this big fight. And Heather Duke walks by, sees them fighting, and says, young love. So now we get, is it Kurt and Ram's funeral? Did they get a double funeral? I can't remember. I should remember this.
That's a great question that I don't remember either.
I think they did have a double funeral, which like, yeah, would be a throwback to some of these teen movies. But this is like, I don't know why, but one of my favorite lines in the whole movie, and I can't even figure out now why it is the dad of one of the players is at his graveside or at the funeral, standing next to his body. And he says something like, I don't care that you really were some pansy. And then a little later he says to the whole congregation, I love my dead gay son. And I don't know why, but that line always gets stuck in my head. And sometimes I'll just think of it for no reason, completely out of context of anything. It's like, it's so poignant and funny and sad and ridiculous at the same time. because I think it's meant to point out, again, like the hypocrisy of like in life, you probably would not have been,
Yes.
happy at all having a gay son, like which JD points out to Veronica while they're sitting there together. But now all of a sudden it's okay. And it's like, I don't know. It's weird because it's not strictly funny. It's also just very sad and poignant. But like, it is also at the same time hilarious. Can you figure out why this is funny? Is it funny to you, or is it just me that it gets?
No, I think it's funny, and I think it's like known as a funny line, right?
Yeah. But like, it's so weird. Anyway, some humor, maybe it's just because it points a mirror on society and just says like, this is what you're like.
So. I mean, yeah, maybe so. Now that you've asked me to dissect it, I'm like, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, but there you are. And in the audience, like when JD points out the hypocrisy to Veronica, she starts laughing, but then she sees this little girl looking at her, and it's obviously meant to be like the little sister of one of the players. And that's when it really hits her, like what they've done, like the real guilt starts to hit her, I think, at that point. And it's one of the few like very unsatirical, emotional moments in the movie too, I think it calls out to the audience in the same way.
Yeah. And, for all my talk about like where are the parents and the families, like here's where they are, here's like that moment where you see the impact of this was a real person with a family, the dad is actually like responding to the death in this emotional way, even if it is weirdly funny. Yeah.
Yeah. Now we come to one of your favorite lines,
yeah,
I think. Yeah,
Veronica is back writing in her diary, like 2 words per page, filling that thing up. And she writes, my teen angst bullshit has a body count. That's one of my favorite lines. Then she goes on, suicide gave Heather depth, Kurt a soul, Ram a brain. I've got no control over myself when I'm with JD. Are we going to prom or to hell?
Meanwhile, back at school, Pauline, the counselor, is finally getting her emotional outpouring. And I didn't even notice this until this year. There's a sign in the cafeteria, and that you see it later in a school hallway, that says the new happiness, like against like this backdrop that looks like what you'd see on a water cooler like cup. Like, it's like, that's obviously her campaign ideas, the new happiness. And her idea of the new happiness is everybody's in the cafeteria is going to get together and hold hands and join in a circuit of love or something like that. And I love Martha Dunstock's reaction is to hide under a cafeteria table. I think that's probably the best reaction you could have to this, other than to just leave entirely.
I would have just left.
And there's
would you have been an under the table or an out of there person?
I'd probably be an out of there person. I don't want to hold hands with all the random people in the cafeteria.
I never ate lunch in the cafeteria have TV cameras around. I wouldn't have been there.
Yeah, so then we go back to JD's house, and Veronica is like trying to tell JD you can't do this shit anymore, and everything's chaos or something. And JD says, "I'm queuing you up.
Chaos is great. Chaos is what killed the dinosaurs, darling."
JD then, for some reason, tells the story of how his mom died, and we find out that JD's mom purposely went into one of the buildings that his dad was about to blow up and waved at her kid and then died. So JD, this is maybe the only actual suicide in this movie. JD's mom killed it. Well, no, there's another one later. But yeah, JD's mom killed herself. Yeah, which is really sad. But JD's still being fucked up, and he hears the song Teenage Suicide, Don't Do It on the radio, says they're playing our song, shoots the radio, and Veronica's like, that's it. We're breaking up.
Yeah.
And as soon as Veronica tries to break up with him, JD confirms why she should break up with him by basically, I guess, sexually assaulting her. Like that would be the word for it today. I didn't think of it that way in the 80s because that wasn't the way we thought about sexual assault then yet. He tries to kiss her to keep her back with him, like makes out with her forcibly. Like at the time in the 80s when I watched that, I was like, oh, he's trying to get back together with her, remind her how much he loves her. And now I'm like, oh yeah, that's just sexual assault. Like, that's how like differently that played in the 80s, I guess. It still played as creepy and bad. Like, do you think when you watched it in the 80s, would you have thought that's sexual assault right away when you looked at it? Or would you have been like, that's just the guy in the movie kissing the girl to get her back?
In the 80s, I was, 0 to 6 years old.
Okay. Okay. When you first encountered the movie, though, were you actually at a place where you could just point that out and be like,
I didn't. No, I was not. I did not think this is cool. He's just trying to get his girl back. This whole scene is like.
Well, I didn't think it was. I didn't think it was 100% cool either. But I wouldn't have said. But I would have also not have said it's sexual assault. I would have been like, that's creepy. He shouldn't do that. She doesn't want it. But for some reason, it just didn't all add up yet in my brain, because I think the 90s was when we had a lot of those really campaigns about no means no and what consent is and what sexual harassment is, etc. That's when I think our society went through that transformation, at least the first round of that transformation, because we're still going through it.
So good point. Would I have been able to frame it as assault? Probably. I wouldn't have used that, that word. So fair enough. And that wasn't even that long ago. But this scene is the breakdown of JD for me. Even though he's orchestrated multiple deaths now at this point, it's this scene where it's what hits it home for me is that I love his chaos line. I think it's a great line. It's one of those lines that if some dude had said that to me in high school in a different context, okay, not talking about the murders that he had just committed, I would have found that really charming. I would have been like, oh, this is a smart dude. I like him. But here he just starts to sound unhinged, and it's even this story about his mom, it helps you understand JD a little bit, but it's hard to even feel sorry for him at this point. And I think that this is really this turning point where, JD just want to get Veronica away from him. Get away from him, girl. He's not cute or cool anymore at this point.
Yeah, I think when I was watching the movie, this is a point where I was like, JD, why you gotta be like this? But I wasn't yeah, I don't know, man. I was a weird teenager, maybe, which is weird because I've never had really a toxic relationship in real life. I've never been with a guy who was like this in real life or even close to like this. All the guys I've ever dated have been super nice. But but somehow the movie watching self was but wait, but why JD why can't you reform? I was still trying to get him back, I guess, as a character. Yeah.
Even after all the murders.
Yeah. I know. I don't know. I've never murdered anyone either. I've never so much as punched anybody. So I don't know. It's weird. Maybe it's movies allow us to act out parts of our id, that we don't allow ourselves to use in real life. I think that might be something to it,
That makes sense.
Anyway, so a lot of plot stuff happens. We'll try to whiz through it really fast. JD blackmails Heather Duke with some old pictures of her and Martha Dumtruck hanging out together. And he tells her that she needs to be the strong leader for the school and gives her the red scrunchie from Heather, which, by the way, how does he have? Is it implied that they took it from the death scene or I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But he uses it to crown a new Heather.
Yeah. Because Green Heather now shows up wearing the red scrunchie. And I should have watched. I don't know if she changes the rest of her clothes. I think she does, actually, now that I think about it. I think she changes to red. And then more plot things. Veronica hangs out with Betty again. And while this is going on, we see Martha attempting suicide by walking into traffic with a suicide note on her shirt. And she's wearing her Big Fun shirt. And then we find out just how bad Heather Duke has become now that she's the big Heather. She shows up at Veronica's house while she's hanging out with Betty. Heather Duke talks about how Martha tried to kill herself. And Veronica says, is she dead? And Heather Duke says, that's the punchline. She's alive and in stable condition. Just another case of a geek trying to imitate the popular people of the school and failing miserably. And Veronica slaps her, which is the only reasonable response to that.
Can't think of a better one. But then Heather and Veronica are hanging out and they tune into this radio show, this advice radio show, and they hear Heather McNamara talking about how bad her life is. And so
Yeah.
Heather Duke makes fun of her about it the next day in school. At the time, they're like, she knows we listen to the show. What is she thinking? What is she doing? How could she like bear herself like this, knowing that we're going to hear it? But instead of like, I don't know, being friends, they like attack this weakness, or Heather Duke does anyway.
Yeah, she writes poor little Heather on the blackboard in the classroom, and which causes Heather McNamara to run out of the room. And Veronica then all of a sudden a light bulb goes off in her head. She follows Heather to the restroom and she finds her trying to take pills in the restroom to kill herself. So I guess the movie isn't about suicide. It also is about suicide. And I like Veronica asks Heather, if everyone jumped off a bridge, would you? And Heather says, probably.
Yeah, which I don't know. My heart like aches a little bit for Heather McNamara here because, you know, the date rape scene, the like her talk show call-in, like, I don't know, I just feel so bad for her. And she never really becomes a horrible person. Like, I don't know if she does anything really that other than just going along with the pranks. Does she ever instigate anything really mean or bullying? I don't.
No, she never instigates. She goes along, but she doesn't instigate. But I mean, I don't think going along makes you guiltless, but neither is Veronica in that case, you know? So, yeah. Yeah, she's definitely the nice Heather, though. And Heather Duke has really officially become Heather Chandler now, the mean Heather. So JD now starts his second part of his plan. Now that Heather Duke is basically in charge of the school, he gives Heather Duke what he says is a petition to get Big Fun to play at their school. And later in the movie, we find out, this is the spoiler section, so later in the movie, we find out that what everyone is actually signing is a whole school suicide note, which the reveal of that never really makes any sense, but it's one of those things you kind of go along with in the movie. Like he pulls off a paper and it reveals it to be a suicide note. I don't know. Nobody checked that. Nobody was like, what's this taped under here?
On the other hand, how important is, you know what I mean? Like how much does it really mean to?
Yeah, I guess nobody would think like I'm signing a suicide note. So.
That would not. I'm a pretty suspicious person and I might wonder what I was really signing, but I don't think I would guess a suicide note.
Yeah. Okay, so Veronica has a confrontation with Heather Duke about why she's being, so bitchy. JD sees her have this confrontation, comes up to her and tries to get Veronica back one more time. And at first it feels like Veronica's like kind of tempted by him. He's like kind of like asking her if she wants to go play some mini golf, puts his arms around her. And she's like, I was thinking of writing a fake suicide note for Heather Duke. And I don't think she's serious, but like JD kind of takes her seriously. And I think that snaps her right back into reality.
Which, I mean, it's a weird thing for her to joke about at this point in the movie, honestly.
Yeah. And JD says he's already started underlining meaningful passages in Heather Duke's copy of Moby Dick. So this is where they wanted to use Catcher in the Rye, too, because it's been associated with violence before, And I think that's probably why the Catcher in the Rye, the Salinger people didn't want them using it. So instead we have Moby Dick, which kind of makes no sense at all. But
I kind of I loved the Moby Dick thing because, like, the way that I interpreted it was that, like, the white whale for Heather Duke was Heather Chandler, and that now she's, like, achieved, top Heather status, and that's, like, her white whale hunt or something. That's how I interpreted that.
All right, well, there you go. That works.
I mean, maybe it didn't seem to not fit to me. I was like, wow, okay, it's really serious for her.
Yep. So JD's got, all these different plans, his petition and his musings about maybe Heather Duke also being offed. But Veronica's still breaking up with him. She gets away from him. She goes home, though, and finds out that JD has planted the idea of Veronica committing suicide in her parents' heads. Like he's told them to watch out for her because she's been showing signs of wanting to commit suicide. And she goes into her room and there's a Barbie doll hanging from a noose in her room as well, which is all pretty creepy. And then we get into what we talked about earlier, where there's a scene where you think it's reality. Like she goes to sleep on her bed and wakes up to have JD like, tapping at her and talking to her. And he's come into her window before, so it seems realistic. But this all ends up later being a dream. I thought it was really well done, though.
It's a very realistic feeling dream. It definitely surreal, but there's a lot of things in this movie, like we mentioned before, that are surreal.
So in this like fake dream, JD is like is coming into her room to try to get her to help him kill Heather Duke and write another suicide note. And she says she won't do it. And like JD says, well, it doesn't matter because society nods its head at any horror the American teenager can think to bring upon itself. To demonstrate that, he just says, we can just write this. And he uses Veronica's hand to write out "life sucks" in this really scrawly handwriting. And like that, up until then, the dream sequence starts pretty credible. And even like when they're going in the kitchen, presumably Heather Duke's house, to find a knife, it still seems credible. But then it becomes surreal at this funeral.
So at the funeral, like they're talking about this passage that JD has supposedly underlined in Moby Dick, which is just the word Eskimo. And then the priest starts like saying Eskimo over and over again. But it's really only at that moment that it starts to become like strange. Up until then, you're like, JD's so crazy. Like maybe this does make sense in some kind of way, right?
Yeah, and your other cue that this is now a dream for sure is that like everyone in the audience is wearing these weird like white sunglasses and weird outfits, like it's like a weird surrealistic funeral setting. It's not realistic at all. And so we now wake up from the dream. So she pulls a Harold and Maude, and she fakes her own suicide by hanging. You know, the thing where you tie the rope around your waist or whatever and then around your neck. Don't try this at home.
It doesn't sound fun.
Yeah, if you screw up, the consequences are not worth it. So, but we've previously seen this in Harold and Maude.
But also Veronica's other alternative was like JD was coming into her window to kill her. So
yeah, possibly. We don't know. But
I think he says it.
It seems
he says it to her like, "Oh, I was coming up here to kill you." But
oh, that's right. But she didn't know that when she was setting herself up.
Maybe, but it's a good, I mean, with the hanging Barbie doll, I don't know. It's a good guess. It's a fair guess.
Yeah, he said he shows up while she's fake dead and believes that she's killed herself. And he says, I was coming here to kill you, but I was going to try to convince you first with my amazing plan. So it's not specifically that he's definitely going to kill her, but like probably because she wasn't going to go along with it. And then he does the thing that all great villains do, where he reveals what his plan is so that the hero can stop him from doing it, which is that this petition has always been a suicide note signed by the whole school, and that he's going to blow up the entire school tomorrow.
Yes, and he calls it a Woodstock for the 80s, which, I don't know, do you think that this is like a 80s nihilism thing, or do you think this is just a JD is crazy? How does that strike you?
I mean, I like calling it that because it's like it came out in 89 and Woodstock was in 69. It's like a cap onto the decade. And there was a lot of darkness under the surface in the 80s. So I guess you could call it like, you know, and teen suicide, as they said, was really up. So I guess in a weird way, it does fit, you know?
Yeah.
And JD is also crazy.
A little bit of both.
So, and then JD leaves because he hears Veronica's mom calling. The mom finds Veronica hanging there, and Veronica just like plays it off like it's no big deal.
So shall we go to the final scenes?
Yeah.
So at school the next day, there's like this big pep rally. You have scenes of like the pep rally, or, you know, up in the gym. But then underneath, JD is getting like, there's bombs wired to the bleachers, and he's getting ready to, I don't know, set something off in the basement. So Veronica goes down there to stop this from happening. What do you think about that whole sequence of Veronica and JD fighting in the basement there?
I mean, I never really remember this part of the movie. Like I think it's one of the weaker parts of the movie because there's not a lot of great dialogue in this section. And it's kind of like JD is either beating her up or kissing her, like at intervals, which is really like shows you the toxic nature of their relationship, I guess. And I just think the plan was stupid. Like, to be honest, like she could have brought somebody with her. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. But I guess, again, he could have incriminated her. But if like her number one goal is to stop the school from being blown up, this is not the way to do it. To like go by yourself against a guy who is willing to commit all kinds of violence.
It's a
Yeah.
really tense scene, even knowing how it ends, because like there's just so many ways, if you were watching this play out in real life, that he could have just like killed her then and there. You know, it's kind of amazing that he didn't. Maybe silly, you know, plot wise that he didn't.
Yeah, I mean, he still does care about her. So I think on a level, so as much as he can care about anyone. So
Yeah, I guess so. I
Yeah.
guess so. I don't know if that's enough for him.
He doesn't know what he wants.
He was planning to kill her the night before. I don't know.
Yep. It's a lethal attraction, Zoe.
All right.
So Veronica kind of succeeds in the end by like I guess she blows off his middle finger at one point, which I never really observed before. But yeah, she blows off his middle finger, and then eventually she gets a hold of the gun and shoots him, I think, in the stomach. So he's kind of, doomed then. But he kind of like falls away, or I don't even. It's like the whole thing makes no sense. We don't have to explain it in super detail. Put it this way: she somehow disarms this bomb, which like seemingly like which she knows nothing about, right? And it's still there. The bomb is still in the basement, which to me seems like it's still pretty dangerous. If somebody presses a button, you're all screwed. You know what I mean?
Yes, these are.
Wait, but then he also has the bomb later. Like, I don't understand what happens here at all. He's outside of the school suddenly, and she's outside of the school, and he realizes he's dead because he got shot in the stomach, I think, or maybe as good as dead. So he decides he's going to blow himself up outside of the school. Which
also
I don't know.
It doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
He could have blown himself up inside of the school if he still wanted to blow up the school. He could have run
right into that pep rally if he wanted his Woodstock.
Yeah, I don't know. In the end, though, like JD blows himself up. Right before he blows himself up, Veronica gets out her cigarette and indicates that she's going to light her cigarette off the fire of his body, I guess. This is all very underwhelming to talk about. Visually, it's not bad. But the ending, this is not the best part of the movie.
The ending is a little silly. I mean, I do appreciate that like cigarette lighting callback. I think that's kind of funny. Like from when he lit his cigarette off of her burning, her hand. But I mean,
it gives her that devil may care kind of feeling too. And then like after JD has blown himself up, Veronica's like all covered in soot and ash and whatever. She goes into the school looking like this. Everyone's gotten out of the pep rally. She sees Heather Duke in the hallway, and Veronica like steals the scrunchie off of Heather Duke and puts it on. And like Heather Duke's just totally dumbfounded, doesn't even know what to do. And then Veronica goes and sees Martha Dunstock, who's now in a wheelchair, and asks her if she wants to like hang out and rent movies on prom night. And then Martha gets to speak for the first time in the movie. In answer to Veronica's request, she says, "I'd like that." And you're like, a friendship is born. And maybe you can picture them and Betty Finn all hanging out together watching movies.
Yeah, I can picture that. I hope that's what happens.
Like, I like that part of the ending. I like the female solidarity and Veronica coming back to like, just being a person, being nice to people again.
But so apparently there were two alternate endings, alternate ending possibilities. In the first original ending, JD succeeded and did blow up the school. Everyone died, and there was a prom scene in heaven.
Which that would have been awesome to watch, to be honest. That part, the prom scene in heaven.
I'm very into that ending. I kind of loved that. And then there's another alternate ending that Daniel Waters says it's the ending he should have fought harder for, where Martha Dumptruck pulls out a knife, stabs Veronica, and says, "F you, Heather." And while Veronica's on the ground laughing with the knife in her stomach, she says, "My name's not Heather. My name's not Heather." I also think that is pretty hilarious. I don't know. Which one would you pick? I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, I would pick the ending we got just because I like Denise Denovi pointed this out too in some of the commentary, that like those other endings sound awesome, but like this movie gives the ending kind of like a female empowerment in a way, like where the girl has stood up for herself against JD. She's not his victim. She's rejected JD. And she's also like raising up another girl from the school. So that's why I like the ending we got. So, and it would be the other endings, each of them would like be less empowering for Veronica, I think. And even for Martha, because then it just turns Martha into a murderer.
That's true. Yeah.
I don't know.
It's like the cycle of vengeance there, like a Kill Bill thing.
Yeah. I really would love to see the prom in heaven, though. I wish you could just watch that scene anyway, like on a deleted scenes or something. That would rule. Just the surreality, the decor, everything like that would be great.
I like that idea partly because it would call the like reality of the whole movie into question in a really interesting way, I think. Like with that opening scene that's never explained of Veronica's head, having croquet balls hit, and then to end with this prom in heaven. I don't know. That kind of, it gives a different cast to all of it if you think of it ending that way.
Okay, so we're going to move on then to just talk about a topic that's kind of was played very differently in the 80s, which is school violence. So Heathers is made at the end of the 80s, and there was actually school violence in the 1980s. Like I looked up some statistics that said from September 86 to September 90, there were at least 71 people killed with guns at school, 201 severely wounded by gunfire, and 242 people held hostage at gunpoint. So this was actually a problem in schools, but it like somehow, like at least in my experience, in my memory, and I think really kind of like when I've looked up sources, this is also the dividing line in American history, like collective memory. It really wasn't until Columbine, like April 20th, 1999, that I think gun violence in schools became like just public issue, this like thing that everybody was concerned about and thought about. I wonder why Columbine, when there were these other gun violence incidents, I wonder, was it because of the scope of Columbine, because of the planning, the personalities of the guys involved? Was it because of the rise of the internet, just making us all more aware of things that were happening across the country? I'm not sure what it was, but it was kind of like this perfect storm of like making gun violence in schools this national issue. So Heathers obviously played differently before Columbine. And a lot of the filmmakers pretty much agree that this probably wouldn't get made today. The director of the film, Michael Lehman, said to the BBC, Heathers wouldn't work today because of the violence in schools now and the way it's often presented as a response to bullying. No one would want to make a comedy that touches on high school violence in that way. So yeah, all the filmmakers kind of agree that it plays differently today and that it may or may not be able to even be made today. And as we mentioned earlier, the Heathers TV show was initially delayed and then eventually pretty much not run at all because of Parkland. So these issues are very hard to touch now in popular media. In the same BBC article, there's a media psychologist that they quote called Dr. Jennifer Johnston, who apparently studies the link between media reporting of mass shootings and copycat killings. And she said, I think it was a perfect recipe to inspire would-be shooters. They chose a popular actor at the time, Christian Slater, who played a classic anti-hero. Winona Ryder was an emblem of counterculture. Side note to Jennifer Johnston here, she wasn't an emblem of counterculture yet when that movie was made, but we'll go on. The characters they played in the film represent those groups that high school shooters often say they identify with, and it's a film that showed what life looked like when you get to sit in judgment on those around you. I watched Heathers as a teenager in the 1980s, and I'm not sure I totally understood then it was a satire. So that's Jennifer Johnston's opinion. I think she finds this movie like potentially harmful. And so like we touched on this a little earlier, but like, do you think Heathers in particular is a pop culture artifact that could inspire people to commit violence? Like, what's your opinion?
I don't know if I believe that that's how it works in general. I also, you took issue with her saying that Winona Ryder was a pop culture icon. I also don't feel like JD is a perfect anti-hero. Like he's crazy in the movie. I don't know. He doesn't seem to me like someone that you want to be like, but I'm not a teenager.
Yeah, that's interesting. So like in the commentary, like they did say that there were people who watched the movie and thought of it as JD's story. So I think it depends what perspective you're coming from. And he was doing the whole Jack Nicholson voice thing, like whether intentionally or not. And Jack Nicholson often played kind of guys that weren't necessarily admirable, but like you would like guys sometimes like these characters that are like dark and like kind of evil. Well, I don't know.
And I like that kind of character too. I just think that JD is I don't know, he's extra scary and creepy and not sexy in the end, right? Like
I mean, I still found him kind of attractive in the end. And my teenage self was like, oh my gosh, why can't you just not be like that and just stop killing people and just, I don't know.
I don't have a teenage perspective on this movie. I admit it. So,
well, anyway, but at the same time, though, as much as I, agree with you, like, I also agree with you that, like, I don't think that's the way it works. Like, I don't think you watch Heathers and become a school shooter. I think, like, to be a school shooter, you have to be somewhat inclined, to want to commit violence in the first place. And you have to, like, have not a lot of, not a lot that's, like, keeping you grounded in society, really. Like, you have to be the type of person who says, I have nothing to lose here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I think if you want to stop school violence, if you want to stop teen suicide, the only things you can do are more substantive things in the end, like substantial things like giving teenagers community, family, networks, schools that are set up to care and nurture and honestly, frankly, a world that seems like it's functional, that seems like it has a place for people in it, for humans in it. Like, I think right now, with climate change and economic inequality and all these things, there's so little incentive to be grounded in the world. It's kind of amazing as many teenagers are as there are,
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty dark. But this movie's dark too. Yeah, so there you go.
But no, I completely agree with you that these issues are beyond what one movie, one song, one made for TV special can tackle one way or another, because it's about community and individuals functioning in their communities. Totally agree with that.
But at the same time, I won't deny that culture does have an influence on how we think. So, and how we're formed. So, like, I will say that for me, Heathers falls on the line of showing that Veronica is the hero. Veronica is supposed to be the hero. You're not supposed to root for JD. I think the film's making that pretty clear. Could people watch it and misunderstand the message? 100%. But I don't think it's the filmmaker's fault if they do. I don't know. All right, so let's close out then. So we'll do, who's your favorite character? Who's the most relatable character? So who's your favorite character in the movie?
Even though I just, went off on a rant about how crazy he is, JD is my favorite character.
Okay, I do need like a reason why for that one. I was going to be like a quick answer, but
I think he's fun to watch, and I do appreciate his arc, and I think that his lines are my favorite lines.
And who's the most relatable character that you can relate to personally?
Just picking one, I'll go with Veronica. I was a smart kid, I was a little bit of an outsider. I feel her.
So my favorite character is Veronica, which is kind of boring, but like she's the most fully formed character. And I do relate. She is one of my most relatable characters too, but I'm not going to choose her for both. But yeah, she's given the most depth, and you're giving her internal monologue. So she's my favorite. And I love her fashion. Oh my God, I can't even deal with how much I love her fashion. And for me, the most relatable character, like, it can't even be one person, because I would never do what Veronica does and try to hang with the popular kids. So it's kind of Betty Finn, but I definitely had more of an edge than Betty Finn. I'm probably like a Veronica, Betty Finn, Martha hybrid. Like, that's me. With like a tiny pinch of extracurricular guy. Yeah. And maybe like my id has a tiny pinch of JD in it, but yeah.
I can see that. I mean, yeah. Now you're making me wish I had given like a more rounded answer to fully capture my personality.
Well, go ahead.
No, because I would steal your answer because it's a good one.
Okay. Yeah, like I really like even though I didn't have the experience of being very overweight like Martha, like I had the experience of being like one of the most bullied people who got called names. So like the fact that she gets to like talk at the end and like become, part of maybe Veronica's future always meant something to me too. That she wasn't just ridiculed, but she also, is part of the very beautiful ending. Yeah. So as to favorite scenes in the movie, I think for me, the funerals are my favorite because they kind of bring together so much of the movie's satire, just the inner monologues at the graveside, and like the preacher concerned about the MTV video games, and then even the surreal funerals. they just kind of point a lens at society, and they're really well done. And the dialogue is so sharp. So I think the funeral scenes are my favorite.
I'll piggyback on that because I agree with you. I think that all of the scenes that kind of are like the touchstones, like the repetitive scenes with the parents, the diary entry scenes, and the funerals that kind of like ground it all together, I think those work really well for me.
All right. So now we're going to get to our double feature recommendations for Heathers. So we'll trade off, I think, and do them one by one. So my first double feature recommendation is the movie Mermaids, which is from 1990. And it's another Winona Ryder movie. And it's a coming of age movie, but it's very different tonally. So, and it's set, I believe, in the 60s. And Winona Ryder is acting alongside Cher, who is playing her mother, and Christina Ricci, who is playing her younger sister. And it's kind of a movie where like Winona Ryder's character is coming of age, but she's also like in a conflict with her mother, who isn't very mature. And like they're both attracted to the same young guy, who is incidentally the guy who plays Jake Ryan in 16 Candles. So it's a charming movie. It shows a different side of Winona Ryder when she was quite young, like a year after Heathers, actually. So I'd recommend Mermaids.
I have not seen that one. My first double feature pick is Badlands from 1973. This is another young people committing murders movie from a very different perspective. It's not really funny at all. It is one of Terrence Malick's early movies. And it's like almost got a Western, it's very 70s feeling, almost Western-y vibe. Sissy Spacek is in it. And so there's this Sissy Spacek line where she's like dating Martin Sheen, and like I think some murders have happened at this point. They're on the run, and she says something like, sometimes I look at him and I love him, and sometimes I want to kill him. So that's why that one came to mind for me.
I still haven't seen that. I should really see that one of these days. So yeah, cool. Good recommendation. Good bringing some classics in here, Zoe.
I mean, that's what I've seen. You'll get to see like the strange collection of movies that I have actually seen.
So my second double feature recommendation, I can't say it would be called a classic, maybe a cult classic, is another Christian Slater movie from 1990 called Pump Up the Volume. And in this one, Christian Slater plays a different kind of counterculture character. He's playing this like radio DJ who is there. I can't remember who's trying to censor him, but somebody's trying to censor him. And he has also like a love story with Samantha Mathis. So if you like your young teen idol Christian Slater, this is another good choice for you. So Pump Up the Volume.
My second recommendation is Brick from 2005. Different era of teen idol. This has Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who was big in the TV show Third Rock from the Sun. I don't know if you ever saw that.
Oh, I know Joseph Gordon-Levitt, though. 10 Things I Hate About You.
I haven't seen that movie.
Oh my God. Okay, you got to watch that.
I know. But this is one where this is another like teen crime movie. But another one with a very different, like dark, noirish mystery kind of feel. There's also a murder in this one. Different perspective, different look at like teens and crimes and murders. That's all I want to say about that one. Don't want to spoil it.
Nice. Okay, and then I'm going to recommend from 1999, The Virgin Suicides, directed by Sofia Coppola, starring Kirsten Dunst. I just like it because it's like 10 years later. It's another movie about teens kind of in trouble and dealing more directly with the concept of suicide, and very different mood and tone. But like, I think it's just really interesting to see how the culture changes in 10 years and the way that teen movies like of an artsier bent are changing over time. And yeah, I think they just go really well together. And I also feel like this is a Gen-X Rom Com, series we're doing. I feel like the 1999 had some movies that were kind of like the end of Gen X in a way, like the end of that. And then in the 2000s, we began something new. So Virgin Suicides, with its callbacks to like the 70s and that kind of nostalgia, still feels very Gen X to me.
Cool. Well, speaking of the 70s, my next recommendation is 5 Easy Pieces from 1970. And I picked this one because after watching Christian Slater do his fake Jack Nicholson, if you want some real Jack Nicholson, he stars in this one. It's hard to pick my favorite 70s Jack Nicholson. And at first I was thinking Easy Rider, but after talking more, after recording part 1 of this, I was like, no, 5 Easy Pieces is the movie that I want to watch to get real Jack Nicholson after this. Nice. I don't know if you want me to summarize it more or just leave it at that.
I mean, if you want to tell any important details, but I don't think it matters that much. Like, you told your reason. Okay, and then my final recommendation is going to be Mean Girls from 2004, a movie that I don't think would exist without Heather's starting the satirical teen movie tradition up as well as it did. I mean, I think there were other satirical teen movies, like I think like certainly the John Cusack Better Off Dead, One Crazy Summer movies were satirical in a way also. But I think Heather's was just such an influential film, especially since in Mean Girls, you've got the plastics, which are kind of another kind of Heather's. So I think those two movies would go very well together. Like, I do not agree with Omar Sanchez that Mean Girls packs the same punch, but I do think it's a fun movie and certainly a lighter mood that would be fun to watch. And with a great cast as well.
And then my last recommendation, which I think I stole from you on accident. I wrote it before.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
But is Harold and Maude from 1971, which we mentioned already that there's like the scene when Veronica's hanging is reminiscent of Harold and Maude. Harold is like this teenager who is obsessed with suicide and faking his own suicide for his mother to discover in various like very frightening and graphic ways. And then he develops this relationship with Maude, and the movie is really more about their relationship than about suicide per se, but I think that they fit.
Yeah, it's the ultimate age gap romance, the biggest age gap. I support it. Anyway, thanks for listening, everyone. Next time, we will be going to Seattle to see Singles, the ultimate grunge music rom-com directed by Cameron Crowe. And remember to send us feedback at feedback@everyromcom.com. Find the podcast at everyromcom.com. Please rate, review, and subscribe to us so you never miss an episode. And just, we'll talk to you next time.
Bye.